All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. Roll call, please.
Aaron Baseman,
Sean Weldon,
Josh Young,
Gary Harris.
Dave Reese.
Maggie Wentler.
Stephen Timblin.
are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do have an amended agenda before us for one item under new business, item 8B.
The driveway access.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Next, to approve the meeting minutes for March 3rd, 2026. Are there any additions or deletions to those minutes?
There are none.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Next item is an open forum. Is there anyone present tonight that would like to speak towards something not on the agenda this evening? You can come forward and state your name, and the lectern is yours.
Oh, thank you. And I have a accessory structure 30 by 40 currently. It was built 15 years ago approximately. And I met all the rules at that time. It's 15 plus feet from the sideline property. And I would like to increase my square footage by another 1,200 feet. And it's my understanding that I could build another 30 by 40 building within 10 feet of the sideline if I kept it 10 feet away from the other building and not connect it. But in my mind, it would be better to connect that addition, do an addition to the existing structure. And I would like explanation from the Planning Commission on how they arrive at that rule.
Have you had conversations with Stephen about it?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and what explanation have you given, Stephen?
So the explanation that I've given is that we do have setbacks in effect at the city of Nisswa here. Property line setback in this particular district is shoreline residential from my recollection, where we have a 10-foot side yard setback. So his existing structure being 30 by 40 is at 15 feet. When we get into accessory structures that are detached from the principal residence, principal structure on the property, the city of Nisswa also has regulations for more restrictive setback when the structure's footprint is exceeding 1,200 square feet. So greater than 12,000 or 1,200 square feet up to 2,500, the setback becomes 30 feet. So an expansion of that structure within that setback area would then require a variance from this body.
Okay.
So is that right that I could build another structure 1,200 feet within 10 feet and be only 10 feet from the sideline then?
On an administrative capacity for an overlay counter permit, not before the planning commission, you are correct. Up to 2,500 square feet cumulative on the property for these detached.
So can someone explain the logic with that rule?
Well, my understanding is that this is written into the ordinance. So as a planning commission, we look at what the ordinance states. As far as the reasoning behind it, we'd have to look back, but I think a lot of it had to do with people were building larger structures, and then where they were placing it was affecting neighboring structures more than the principal structure. That was one of the reasons. We could get into more of the grainy details of it, just speaking when we interpret what the ordinance states, but I think that was one of the reasonings behind it.
But Steve has told me that the commission is considering some changes to those rules, so
We are.
that's why I'm here to point that out. And hope you would take that under consideration, because that rule doesn't make any sense at all to me. So I've had comments that, if I build another garage within 10 feet of the other property, well, my cousin said, well, that'll look stupid, he said. So, I mean, you know, it's a better use of the resources to add on. So, I think you guys should consider a way for that to happen. I don't know what kind of rules that would be, but, I just wanted to point that out, my situation. So
Okay,
that's all I have to say. So,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay. Moving on to public hearings, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. All right, first item is variance application 005-26, seeking to obtain a variance to construct a principal residential structure and install a new septic system, both in reduced ordinary high water OHW setbacks in the Shoreline Residential Zoning District. Subject property is located at 25184 Nisswa Lake Lane, Nisswa, Minnesota 56468, PID 28110717. Owner applicant David and Eileen Nielsen. Do we have an applicant here? You can go to the lectern or you can go to the table. And then state your name.
David Nielsen.
Stephen, your staff report?
Thank you, Chairman. So we do have before us a variance application for two-dimensional deviations as proposed by the applicant here. One of the two would be a variance for the construction of a 2,344 square foot principal residence, 59 feet from the OHW or the ordinary high water level, where 75 is required. The second deviation would be a variance for the installation of a residential septic system for the treatment of sewage from that at 67 feet from the ordinary high water level, where 75 feet again is required. The applicant in this proposal would be seeking to demolish and reconstruct that principal residence. We checked with the Department of Natural Resources as to the base flood elevation, which is the direct driver for the regulatory floodplain elevation that first floor proposed would have to be in there. There is an email attached in the packet as it relates to that. This subject property does have an existing guest quarters on it within the detached accessory structure. This proposed house would be a replacement of, again, the principal residence upon it. We do have a septic design for a 5-bedroom system. And the surveyor has depicted the approximate location of that soil treatment area at that deviant proximity of 67 feet. The existing soil treatment area on the property is beneath a portion of the driveway. When you have a driveway surface over top of a drain field, that does impact performance in the long run. A wetland delineation was not submitted as part of this application, although the National Wetland Inventory does not depict any wetlands to be present on the subject property. As such, a condition has been listed for that evaluation to be performed if approved. And due to the impervious footprint on the property, a stormwater management plan and shoreline buffer would be required as a condition of the approval.
Does the applicant have anything to add?
I think a couple of you've been out there and saw the property. You know, it's the high point of the property. We don't have a lot of options to build down into the valley of it. And so basically we're just asking to build on that current property, even moving it back a little bit further. And I think in the long run, once it's done, I don't know anyone would notice a difference from what we have there now.
Okay. Is there anyone that'd like to make public comment regarding this application? All right, hearing none, I'll close public comments. Commissioner member comments. Do we have any questions?
I have just two. Are the neighbors adjoining properties, have you talked to them about,
Yes,
Uh,
some are here.
and you're okay with granting variances that he's requesting? You don't have to talk, but I just.
Well, I just so I'm
State your names.
Greg Newmeyer and I live next door.
Okay.
And both the properties on either side have buildings that are right on the water and very close. So they're still gonna be well back of
Yeah,
what's there now.
No, I was out on the site and
Yeah,
I
so-
saw that, so.
So,
But
but yeah,
the question always comes up when somebody someone's gonna come in and request a variance, it's something that
Yeah.
goes against what the written ordinance is, and if the neighbors are against
Yeah,
it,
no. And,
that's not a good thing.
and the neighbors on the other side were here at spring break and I talked to them and they're good for it. So,
Okay.
so no issues from the
Yeah, it's
neighbors.
just part of the consideration, so. The survey drawing that we've got is really small, and as I age, my eyes get worse and worse, so I'm having trouble determining where there's an existing building someplace within this envelope, is there not?
There is, and it is slightly closer to the OHW than the proposed
The,
structure.
the new building is closer to the high water line, is that correct?
No,
Or the
the,
old one was?
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
So I will zoom in on that feature here on the survey for viewing pleasure there. So we do have a existing proximity to a, correct me if I'm wrong, David, that's an existing patio there at the
Oh, yeah, I see it on there now, the existing one.
49 feet.
Yep, yep.
And the existing proximity of the home being this crosshatched boundary there at 53 feet. So the proposed patio is proposed to be 49 feet. That's not going to be a violation or deviation of our ordinance. But the house is at 53 feet, proposed at 59 as shown in these dimensions here.
Okay. And the other point, when I was looking between the area between the two driveways, there's a driveway servicing the neighbor to the west, and then between yours, was any consideration given to putting a drain field in that area?
If you're talking in this region of the property here, there is a wellhead right there, an existing well, from which there's a 50-foot isolation.
Okay, okay, I missed that. Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. So as a part of a variance application, we go through these questions, and as a commission, we answer them. First question is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance and comprehensive plan?
Yeah, could I just introduce, maybe we separate these deviations as individual findings or touch on them with each answering of them?
Sure. So we have, are we doing each setback? Which one do you want to separate it out?
So there's a variance for the construction of the principal residence at 59 feet where 75 is required. We can
Okay.
start with that one.
Start with the dwelling setback.
Okay, yeah. We'll start with the dwelling setback then. So is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance and comprehensive plan?
I'd say yes, it's actually improving the location of the site with it being further back than the existing house, and the neighbors are in line with it, so.
Agree.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Number two, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the city code of ordinances?
Yes, basically the same answer as number one.
Agree.
Is the need for a variance due to circumstances unique of the property and not created by the property owner?
Again, yes, it looks like the alternatives for septic and have been taken into account, so.
Yeah, I would add that just based on the topography of the lot itself, there's really not much other alternatives. So that's the reason why we have variances,
Right.
so. We agree?
Yep, agree.
Number four, will the issuance of a variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Yes, the new dwelling that's being built is going to fit in well with the adjoining neighbors, so.
I agree.
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 Does the need for the variance involve more than economic considerations?
Yes. Again, all the alternatives were investigated, and it fits the site.
Okay.
Actually, it does not.
Does, okay,
Not a yes.
yeah,
Thank you for that.
okay. And we want to run through these again?
For the
That's
septic system.
For the septic, okay, for the septic, okay. In the variance and harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance and comprehensive plan.
Yes, same as, same answer as number one for the dwelling.
Agree? Okay. Number two is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the city code, note of, code of ordinances.
Yes, same answer as in dwelling number two.
Agree.
Agreed.
Is the need for the variance due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the property owner?
Yes, same answer as in, in dwelling number, for number three.
Four, will the issuance of a variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Yes, same answer as dwelling number four.
Five, does the need for the variance involve more than economic considerations?
Does not.
Does not.
Same answers for the dwelling, number five.
Okay.
Agree.
Agreed.
With those questions answered, I will entertain a motion.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the variance application 005-26 seeking to obtain a variance to construct a principal residential structure and install a new septic system, both with reduced ordinary high water setbacks in the shoreline residential zoning district, subject property located at 25184 Nisswa Lake Lane in Nisswa, Minnesota. PID number 28110717, owner applicant David and Eileen. Aileen Nielsen. With the facts and findings and conditions recommended by staff.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Uh, Next on the agenda is zoning map amendment application 008-26 to rezone parcels 282-20715 and 282-20716 from open space residential zoning district to shoreland residential zoning district. Subject property is located at 4026 West Linden Boulevard, Nisswa. Owner applicant Richard Lord, and I think Fred Heidman is representing. Okay. Fred, you want to come to the lectern or the table?
Good evening, board. My name is Fred Heidman. So I don't know, I have no idea what I can add to this. It's just a simple rezoning. But if there are questions or anything, I'll see what I can do to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, your staff report.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have before us a zoning map amendment proposal to change the subject properties from open space residential zoning to shoreland residential zoning. The impacts of this, and I've drafted findings of facts that for your consideration here. The impact would be to change the zoning district. As we know with our land use charter, every zoning district has different uses that will allow within each. And so before us is this proposal. There are certain criteria that the city must review for these zoning map amendments, 15 in total that find their way into the findings of facts within your packet. Happy to touch into each of them as you wish or as conversation leads to.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Well, I have one, I guess. The purpose of rezoning, is this to build a new, can you build a different structure with this, with the new zoning versus the original, or what's the reason behind it?
Beyond the land use charter, there are certain things that would be elicited changes. Pervious surface coverage would shift from 15% to 25%.
Okay.
The entirety of this parcel is within shoreline, so that would not be above and beyond.
That's fine. I was just curious what the purpose was.
And staff recommended the
Yeah.
change.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the zoning map amendment application 008-26 to rezone parcels 28220-715 and 282-20716 from open space OSR to shoreland residential zoning district. And again, according to all the owners and information and tracks that are listed in the agenda, and all according to the findings of fact and the staff report. And conditions. There are no conditions to this. Right?
Conditions on a
Okay.
rezone.
Right.
There was one potential condition listed, in conversations with the city attorney. There was a previous proceeding back in 2005 that kind of left itself open-ended. So as stated in my staff report, this approval would thus supersede and replace that petition and rescind the approval, if any.
Oh,
And just to clarify, the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment functions here in an advisory capacity to the city council, so that would be the next target.
right. Okay. So I recommend approval to the council. Sorry.
Correct.
Second.
Before I call for a vote, I did fail to give an opportunity for the public to make public comment if there was any. Okay, hearing none, I'll close. So we have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Next is conditional use permit application 009-26, seeking a conditional use permit to operate a restaurant within an existing commercial structure within the commercial waterfront zoning district. Subject property is located at 24621 South Clark Lake Road in Nisswa, 56468. Owner applicant Nature Link Resort. Do we have a representative here from Nature Link?
Yep, we have two. I don't know if I'm on audio or not. Steven,
Yep,
are you
we
able
can
to
hear
hear me?
Can hear you, Ben.
Okay, perfect. Nice. Hey, Philip.
Hi, Ben. Good afternoon. I'm Philip Daly. I'm the general manager, managing partner at Nature Lake Resort, and Ben is our other founder and owner of the resort as well.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Steven, your staff report.
Thank you. So we do have before us a application to have a conditional use permit to operate a restaurant within an existing commercial structure. This property is zoned commercial waterfront, and as such, the use table does drive the use pathway as a conditional use element. We have two different chapters that structure restaurant use as it relates to this application. Chapter 20 was our land use and development chapter. That does provide that conditional use permit pathway for your guys' review tonight. The second applicable chapter would be that of Chapter 8 business, as it relates to Article 2 and alcoholic beverages. For purpose of this hearing, we did advise the applicant as to the guardrails existing in both chapters. The restaurant definition in Chapter 8 has higher standards with a minimum amount of seating of 50 guests, and the applicant has shown us a floor plan that depicts exactly more than 50. So before you guys is the use of a restaurant establishing. Before then, they can move forward to city council seeking their liquor license. We need to first establish the use of that restaurant and move through that proceeding. We do have a active design going forward for an advanced septic system as well. The applicant's working with Northland Septic, and they have installed a water meter on the facility that's going to help them track usage and establish that design flow for the advanced septic system. The city not having a qualified employee on staff to do the review phase and the inspection of the installation, had to seek quotes from professionals within the area. We did receive one such estimate back from one Seth Gravidal, with current certification expiring in June of 2027. He quoted two amounts. He kind of split out his bid. one for the design review of $400 for cost, and the second of the installation inspection of $400 for cost. It's my recommendation and in our code of ordinances that the professional services costs associated with this work should be reimbursed to the city by the applicant. And that is listed as a condition in this review. Happy to answer any additional questions or field discussion as questions.
Does the applicant want to give us a brief overview of what the proposal is?
Yeah, totally. And Stephen, I don't know if it's relevant to respond to any of the concerns from local community members. I had typed up something quick if that's relevant. The 50,000 foot we'll be adding a cafe and bar to the existing structure. There's already food and beverages that already happen in the building, just not under our own permit. It's subcontracted. And the goal of this is a restaurant amenity designed to enhance the guest experience and provide something valuable for the broader community here. So it will be in the second story level of the event center overlooking the lake. Yeah, we're actively working with our designers right now to finish up our interior design and create something great for the community here.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment regarding the application? Okay. Why don't we, you can just come to the table. And there should be a green button on there that's lit up so we can hear your voice on the microphone.
Tap the front of it there. Tap the bottom of there.
There you go.
Oh, love like you, Tess. Okay. I submitted this ahead of time. Hi, I'm Nikki Schultz. If it's okay, I'm just going to read what I wrote so it's clean. Okay. Commissioners, my husband Clay and I own the residential property on Irene Lane immediately adjacent to the NatureLink parcel on the southeast side of their property. My goal with this process is to be a supportive neighbor, as well as request that our neighbors be supportive of us, and not just us, but all of nature. We have been residents of Clark Lake since 2019, and I want to say genuinely that I am supportive of this application, and I really want to see the owners succeed. We want to see the owners succeed. I will share background, but I want to start with the end in mind, with our specific request to support this, their request. That the commission require that compliant screening under section 20-189 be established along our shared property line at the expense of the applicant prior to restaurant opening. Compliant screening defined as year-round effective screening, minimum 6 feet tall, fully blocks vehicle headlights, mitigates noise, and designed to meet the same aesthetic and brand standards already demonstrated by the applicant's property. Here's the background behind this request. This is not more than 3 minutes. The current language, condition 3 in the staff report states that screening from adjacent residential properties must be maintained under section 20-189. The issue right now is the language, specifically the word maintained. The primary vegetation along our shared property line is a row of dying lilac bushes that have large gaps, haven't bloomed in several years, and even if they did, lilacs are bare in winter. This matters because section 20-189 is clear. It states that screening shall be equally effective in the winter and summer, and that vegetative screens must consist of healthy, hardy plant materials that provide effective visual screening year-round. Even healthy lilacs do not meet that performative standard. The impacts are real and personal. I'm going to first start with the human impact. In the lighting, our bedroom window faces a NatureLink property, and right now we have to sleep with the windows closed and the shades drawn because the headlights from the cars driving and parking come directly into our room all evening. A restaurant will bring more vehicles later into the evening. Further, the 2024 CUP condition already required that lighting be minimized to protect the residential nature of Clark Lake and surrounding neighborhoods. We already had concerns that their lighting choices did not meet this standard. If it did, we believe that we would see more ground lighting instead of overhead lighting that is on all night long. A restaurant and the additional traffic amplifies this lighting concern. Noise, point number 2. Their HVAC equipment and outdoor guest activity are audible, not just from our property, but we have learned from our neighbors across the lake. The center lacks a foyer, so when there's a wedding, each time the door opens, the bass and the music carries across not only the entire lake, but our property. We have had noise complaints even from our own guests. A restaurant operation will likely increase this impact. Number 3, privacy and security. My family has a sauna that we use in the traditional way, and our outdoor amenities we use regularly. We believe we should be able to enjoy our own property without being visible to commercial patrons next door. Our concerns are heightened. We've already had concerns. We have not had a chance. We have, when they first opened, we had called NatureLink, but we only were met with the managers and no other follow-up. So I have not had these conversations with the folks who are here today. But they have been existing for a while, but are now heightened by the nature of the restaurant compared to resort use already approved. Resort and event guests are known and pre-registered. A restaurant introduces the general public, increasing both volume and unpredictability, particularly in the evening hours. So our request is that the ordinance, the ordinance already requires effective screening here. We are simply asking the commission to make condition 3 enforceable with real teeth, requiring that compliance screening actually be put in place. The ordinance specifically permits a minimum 6-foot fence as an alternative to vegetative screening, and given the headlight, noise, and privacy security concerns I've described, a solid fence along our shared boundary with specific placement determined by us if the fencing is not needed in the whole length, at the expense of the applicant, is our request. And if you would bear with me for like 2 more minutes. Can I have 2 more minutes? Okay. So I shared the impact to us as humans, but I feel called to just share something else. So I'm a Christian, and I know that doesn't matter or mean anything, but it does matter in what I want to say, and that is I was taught that nature is God's first Bible, and everything we need to know about God's design can be found in nature, and nature is constantly seeking balance, and so everything in nature has value, everything. And when those values, like if I just take the sun as an example, the sun is neither good nor bad. The sun is good when it's balanced with night. The sun is good when it's balanced with rain. But the sun has very destructive properties when it is unbalanced. And so goodness and life are created when there's this balance. And we can talk about the masculine and feminine, all the different things. But why this is relevant to this particular case is every polarity needs a balance. So the in-breath and the out-breath is another example of this. They both create each other. You can't have one or the other. You can't choose. And balance is everything. And I love, Josh, that you used the word harmony earlier in the hearings, because it's a plea, I guess, for the commission and for the applicants of NatureLink to hold the balance of development and preservation. We very much support growth, and we support development, and we support the movement of things, and that's change. But change and development without preservation will create harm, just like the sun out of balance. And so that's my concern right now, is what my plea is for NatureLink is I really want to see how they are preserving nature, the very thing that they want to be connected to. And the balance of the individual and the community. And the thing that's really resonating for me as I'm hearing everybody talk, and even all of these like statutes and limitations, and by the way, like our own family, when we did our sauna, like we had to adjust it based on impervious land. And my initial reaction was, oh, that's so stupid. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, that's in place because of this balance of freedom and responsibility, that if I, as an owner, cannot take responsibility for the goodness, not just of what I want, but what is the goodness of the community, what is the goodness of nature, then we have to have rules. And so we can have more freedom if we take more responsibility. And so my plea is that as they continue to grow, which I am in favor of, I think that their property is beautiful. I've had friends that have stayed there. I think they're doing a wonderful thing for our community. So I'm very much in favor of NatureLink and Catalyst, very much in favor. And my plea is figure out how do they mitigate noise, not just for us as human neighbors, but for the animals? How do they mitigate the lighting? So, I mean, I've done enough research, and I know this is going to sound like I'm a tree hugger, but like the birds, like the night animals, need rest. Like they need lights to be turned off, not just us humans. And all the lighting there and the lighting from the that shines out onto the lake impacts nature. It impacts nature, and their brand is around connecting to nature. Same thing with the music that is pounding and reverberating. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with celebrating, but that bass impacts nature. And so what I want to see that is outside of the scope of what is in the ordinance, what is in the written format, is how they are bringing more balance, more harmony into their choices to preserve nature as they continue to grow, which we are in favor of. So thank you for hearing my ad hoc comments, and I'm sorry if I took too long, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Evening, everybody. My name is Dave Drexler. I've lived on the lake with my wife for almost 30 years. Been in this area. It's very tranquil. It's very nature related. I can only add a few comments. I don't want to elaborate and cover everything that she's already covered. But the noise on the lake has increased dramatically. The light is absurd. It, as she mentioned and stuff, that's some of the concerns. They've tried to, like she said, that it's a nature related type atmosphere. It's not. It's gotten worse. Adding a restaurant bar to this and stuff, I think we'll continue to do that. What's next? They want to add a patio outside, add more lighting. It's already been, when they've had an event, the night crew comes in to clean, it turns night into day because there's so many lights on. They've tried to put some curtains around the windows and stuff. That's helped some, but it has not eliminated that problem. Car lights shining every place when they're driving in and out and stuff. It's turned living rooms, bedrooms into uncomfortable state. They truly, they came in, they were kind of quiet to begin with. They have not been really what I would classify as good neighbors in the last while, just because of the increased noise. They're trying to limit noise at 10. It gets quiet for a half an hour to 35 minutes, and then the noise continues because the people are celebrating and they can't control that portion. And having a bar and restaurant in there, I think will just actually continue to add to that problem. And the whole reason we're on the lake is because we want to have that tranquil thing. You want to have maybe a campfire or sit down stick, watch the sunsets or listen to the loons call. The things that people enjoy about being up north has actually been deteriorated. And that's my concern, that it will deteriorate even more. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Stephen, am I able to just make a couple notes on those items?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so just kind of high level on those. First off, I just want to note that we as well want to be great neighbors. We're here to be a part of the community. The reason we purchased this resort is it was zoned resort. It's Minnesota's second oldest resort, and it's been that way for 120 years. So this use is not new. What we're proposing is a thoughtfully evolved, kind of the next thing to serve both the community and our guests. Specifically on the noise, so all of our events are monitored, every single one, and tracked. The event managers, if the noise gets above a certain decibel, which we track all this, the music is turned down. We're an active part of the Lake Association, and the lighting was addressed over a year ago, actually. my wife is on the Clark Lake Board Association. So we've gotten a lot of feedback from neighbors over the past 4 or 5 years. And each time we get feedback, we do address that. So that's on the noise specifically. On the lighting, the same thing. So the lighting, they were noting, hey, lighting's an issue. So a lot of the outdoor lights that could be removed were removed. The other lights that are existing now are specifically for safety. So on grade changes and or places where it's pitch black, dark, those are safety items. And then the final one being lighting on the inside. We invested in significant dollars in curtains to basically cover the inside. So again, each time, we hear from neighbors, we do react. Sometimes we can't, do it immediately or respond instantaneously, but we do take those things very seriously. The final thing I just wanted to note about the screening for our neighbor there on the east. So we still have a building that is part of our initial permit there that will be getting developed in the next year or two. Upon the development of that, there will absolutely be screening and landscaping that happens. Fence isn't possible. We don't want to be putting up ugly fences, again, that degrade nature even more. Vegetation, I think, is reasonable. But yeah, there's obviously only so close you can go to the lake as well. But absolutely, we hear you loud and clear on that one. We're also in favor of that once we finish that. So anyway, just wanted to note those things. Thanks, Stephen.
Can I show pictures of the current state? Or would that be helpful?
Don't know how we would share it online. I particularly don't see a problem with it if you wanted to show it, but.
Yeah, it's not more of a, is it helpful?
What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I was there today, so I had a good look around. Gary, you usually go.
I wasn't at this, I've been to the Nature Link several
But
times.
you're
with that
familiar?
farm. I'm pretty familiar with it, so.
That's
Not
it.
the specific items of lighting and things like that, but.
Would you like to see it? It's up to you guys. I mean,
No, I don't need to see it. I understand the concern, so I think that's something that needs to be addressed coming from me. I mean, I've dealt with this on other planning and zoning boards, and I understand your concern, so I think that's something that definitely needs to be addressed with the approval of this, so.
okay.
Yeah, the new building that they're putting in is.
Should she be up here?
So the issue is if we have we have to have everybody here and they can't hear you from.
So I'm fine with vegetation, and actually because I am like a believer in being in harmony with nature, I would be fine with that as long as we had complete privacy that met the actual performative requirements. My concern continues to be right now, if we put a camera up at our property, there are headlights shining in all the time. And in the future state of the hotel that's going in, which is this blue current cabin right now. Right there. I'm standing on our property, so it is really that close, and you can tell that there is no effective screening. I'll give you another. So this is me standing at my sauna. And where you see right now, if you look at the actual drawings, when cars come in, they will park and drive around straight into our property within feet. So we have transitioned from being a very, very quiet, I mean, I have a Clark Lake, like the Clark Lake Life thing started, and people are so proud of being on Clark Lake because we are a quiet lake. We are a lake with paddle boarders and pontoons and kayaks, nature related. And the number of cars and noise is really concerning. And I think what I really want Ben and, what's your name again? Philip. I want to be really good neighbors to you guys, and I really want to see you guys grow. That's like really important that you hear that from me.
Thank you.
Really important. And I want to feel like you guys care about us too.
We won't want to address
Okay,
us,
sorry,
not
sorry,
the
sorry.
applicant.
Okay, so, so far, because of the years that they've been there, and I have called the managers when we have had issues, and I've asked to be called back, I have never heard from either of these guys or any owners at NatureLink for the years that we've been there and that they've been there, and we're next doors.
Nikki,
Yeah.
that's not true.
It's not?
That's not true.
Okay.
So.
Okay, rather than get in the back and
So
forth,
I
let's,
think, so let's just like, shared interest is what I want to get to. I want to see these guys succeed. And I want them to not do the bare minimum when it comes to making sure that both, that we continue to have a good experience on our property, and that they also continue to think about how do they make choices that are in harmony with nature. That's it.
thank you.
It's just a 1 to 2 years. So I'll just say this. It says maintained. We have lived for years with this issue, and we're just like, we can't wait that many more years. It's really bad. And if I need to submit, like, or put up a camera to show the lights and all of the noise, like, I will, but I don't think we can wait 2 more years.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, I will close public comments. Commissioner member comments, do we have any questions?
I guess, to me, it's a bit concern. I see other places that are commercial place moving. I understand it was a resort for years and years, but again, it's a resort on steroids compared to what was there prior. So I think to be a good steward of the lake and their surroundings, I think the screening is important to me if we're gonna approve it.
I believe I heard comments from founder, or one of the founder of the resort, that they were gonna work with them, especially along the east line. And that when they redevelop that property, there's a existing building in there, right? That's gonna be rebuilt next year.
What's that?
That you were gonna screen that off, and I would assume you'd put evergreens or something along there to seal them off, so.
Yeah,
What's
for
that
sure.
building gonna be?
Yep, that's going to be more lodging, in that's going to do a lot more than a fence is going to do, or anything like that is going to do from a blocking light perspective. The reason it wouldn't make sense to do vegetation or a fence right now is all that's going to have to get tore up or really close to it, and all those trees would just die if we try to do this before we do the foundation there. So we're again fully compliant and totally agree. We frankly want to, visually block as well. So we'd be more than happy to work with you, Nikki, on that offline here.
Would there then also be windows on that side of the building?
There are, I don't know. We don't have the final plans done. Most likely not. We will most likely keep all views out. But I can't confirm, is there going to be a skylight or something that lets light in on that side? Maybe. I don't know for sure, but we're not going to be facing windows out onto that residential property for sure.
Do you have, I can't quite see, and I was wondering this when I was going through the notes on the drawings and the certificate of survey. On the proposed new structure, what is the setback from the OHW? I don't see that listed.
So for this application, there's not a proposed structure. This is only for the existing one, but I believe what you're maybe referring to is this unit off
Yes.
on the right-hand side here.
Yes.
It is a 30-foot setback requirement. The survey does not show a specific dimensionality, but does depict it to be meeting that requirement
Okay.
of 30 feet.
Okay.
Personal observation, My family was on Clark Lake. It's still in my family on the southeast corner over on East Clark Lake Road. And that's been in our family since 1958. There's always been a resort there that, you know, for many years before that. And there has been resort activity back and forth, and there's been traffic in and out. There's, you know, between the existing resorts that were there for years, and you had the hockey camp in there. And there's always been activity in there, so that hasn't changed. So I think what is changing, though, is the lakeshore properties are changing. That there was in 1958, and up until 70s anyway, these were all small cabins. They were mostly summer part-time lodging, and that's changed a lot now. And now we've got large homes. They're gobbling up more space on the lots. They're not as close or farther distant from each other as they were, and all of that combines to the problems that you're talking about. And I can understand it, the lighting, the noise, especially. Now there's always been noise in there because it was resort activities in the summer. It was pretty quiet in the winter, other than when it was hockey camp. But even then, it wasn't sincere or a lot. But this will be the first time that there's been a liquor license in there. So, and that's going to change things. There's no doubt about it. But I think we have to rely on the owners, that they're going to have to control that. And if they don't, they stand to lose privileges too at some point if they don't do this right. So.
Is there an estimate on an increased traffic flow?
No. So the main purpose of this was to just bring things in-house and have better control, frankly, over both the liquor and the food. All this stuff is happening right now regardless. The change really will be the cafe in the morning. So having coffee in the morning, and we're talking about a couple of cars. So no, we're not trying to throw a rager here and, you know, build a nightclub. This is a cafe and bar at the resort. So definitely not.
So what you're saying is, if you get this passed, nothing's changing really. And if you don't get this approval by council, the events are still gonna happen and all those things are gonna happen still.
Can you say that question again? Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
So if you don't get approval on this restaurant that you'll own, basically, you're still having events and you're still gonna do things in the weddings and all the different things there. You're gonna have the people there with or without your approval on this, or our approval on this.
Yeah, that's correct. So events are already happening now. All that stuff is going to continue to stay the same. The thing that's going to change is we're going to have it be a cafe in the morning, and it's open to the public. The reason we're doing this again is to better serve the customers. Without this, we can't have that control. So like right now, everything is catered in, for example. We can't serve groups of less than 30. So we can't have small groups there. We can't have small retreats there. So this is going to change that, as well as have better control over liquor. Right now, it's required to be subcontracted because we don't have that liquor license, which is not the reason we're in this hearing. We're in the hearing for the restaurant. Liquor license is a separate thing. But yeah, it's frankly to have better control. So the goal is that this is going to be a great little cafe, and in the summer, people can take their bikes from the bike trail and pop over for a coffee in the second story of the event center and check out the beautiful lake.
Did I hear you right? The restaurant's only going to be for morning use? Did you just say that?
Our crawl, walk, run approach. The crawl is going to be open from 7 to 11 a.m.
Okay.
That's it. Walk could be a year from now, could be 2 years from now. We'll hope to open it up for lunch. We have to, learn how to run a restaurant and a cafe, frankly. So yeah, we have a crawl, walk, run approach here with this.
A resort should have these facilities. I mean, they should have restaurants there's really no problem that I can see with having liquor in there either, as long as it's under, it's well controlled. I think what we're talking about with the neighbors, they're talking about nighttime activity. That sounds like the biggest complaint. That's where all the lighting and traffic and headlights are gonna come from. So you're still gonna have that in the resorts because it is being operated as a resort now, and the restaurant is not gonna add anything at that in the near future to that in the evening. That's what it sounds like.
But with it being open to public though too, then they don't have that today. So you could propose that more traffic coming there first just from the public too, though.
That's a possibility, yeah.
That I think needs to be considered as well, to her point and to the neighbors.
This is kind of unrelated, but it came up when we were talking about the advanced treatment system, and maybe it's a question for David and Stephen. In my experience at our establishment, we have an operating permit for an advanced treatment system that is inspected every year is how it works for Crow Wing County. Can we elaborate on?
Sure. Yeah, so we do have operating permit requirements under Chapter 28, our sewer ordinance. For this particular system, they're proposing to use an advanced treatment and aerobic treatment unit in one or several of the tanks to reduce the high strength waste that's currently going into the septic system. So a solution to fix both the original management plan from the design of the event center back in 2022 that structured the dynamic that the applicant is demonstrating with the catering. They cannot wash dishes and prep food in their current structure due to that limitation of their existing septic system. So this new design of a new system would help alleviate that. But yes, there is an operating permit requirement where they would need to hire a wastewater operator monitoring it, providing reports to the city and renewing annually.
So one of the questions I came up with, just because I have to check it all the time. So we have logs and our gallon and usage. If we have a change, the applicant mentioned that they might change it into more operating hours, might open up the operating hours. I'm assuming that would also change the volume that's being produced for the wastewater. Is there a way is the operating permit able to track that if we have a change of use, if they're changing the business hours to make sure that the system is operating effectively?
To that end, that's where the water meter installation that the advanced designer that they're currently working with has required installed. He's currently tracking the data, trying to extrapolate on the existing occupancy that Ben and Philip are providing to him so that he can extrapolate what it might look like at the highest use in the summer. So that's, to my understanding, where this designer is basing his estimate for design flow. Where on the loading end of permit issuance, we should be designing it for the maximum.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, systems are limited to the design that the designer based the peak flow on. So, that's really the limiting factor there, or they have to take a look at expanding the capacity of the system.
Okay. Questions? Any questions?
I just have one question. When this was purchased and originally turned over, I just going off memory, but I thought a bunch of this was spelled out on the front end, even like when buildings would get demolished, when parking lots would get paved, when it wouldn't get paved. I thought a bunch of this was spelled out on the front end of this. I don't know, Dave, if you're around, were you around, Gary? I remember Don Jacobs had a pretty extensive list with this, if you're nodding, Maggie. And so I just wonder if a bunch of these questions aren't already answered, that maybe some more digging needs to be done on. Just from my remember, if you guys remember on it, is a fairly lengthy.
I know there was a lot of talk about the septic at the point, and maybe Ben and Philip have more insight on some of that, but a lot of it is they didn't want to update the septic until they knew what they wanted to do
Yep.
with their big plan.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so there is a master septic plan, and Stephen, actually, I believe you have that. But you're correct. So this septic, and I just wanted to comment, you're correct. He's designing this for whatever the run situation would be, the absolute maximum. And because the last thing we would want to do is overload that system. From a guest experience perspective and environment perspective. But yeah, there is a master plan. That is what Stephen has there, has all the existing buildings that we have now. And then I believe it's in red. It's a little hard to see the screen there, but all the red locations are the buildings that were approved for future development based on the existing structures.
Sure. Yep. So we did permit a couple of these cabins here, each with their own individual septic system. So all of these have been kind of piecemeal together as we've built out this development from that PUD approval that was handled in 2024.
And then my next question is, if it's a new CUP or whatever, then doesn't that automatically trigger, like people brought up, more traffic flow? Doesn't that automatically trigger then the parking aspect of it too, to be looked at?
Doesn't automatically generate a traffic study. For that would be kind of like a planned unit development. If we were starting over with a PUD, in this case, that's where I would recommend implementation of such a thing. I think it should be noted too, in 2024, there was still the same open space requirements. That's represented by this crosshatch here, where all of that open space requirement is to be preserved in perpetuity. At the same time that 2024 hearing came through, there was still the screening requirement between adjacent properties from commercial to residential as well. So.
Just to answer your question there too about parking. So this cafe / restaurant / bar will never be operating at the same time as a max occupancy event. So it's not a this and, it's a this or. So from a parking perspective, there won't be a wedding and the cafe be open type of thing. And it's also that way from a septic perspective. And we're doing that conscientiously from that perspective. So yeah, it won't be an increase or volume of vehicles on site type of thing.
Right, because even if this, got to your run stage, you couldn't operate this and have an event in the same building at the same time, correct? So either or, you'd have to close the restaurant to have a wedding or something?
It's based on occupancy. Yep, that's correct.
So going back to the initial, when this was put in place, going back to the screening, because we kind of fell off of that. What has been put in place if there's supposed to be that screening? And has it been maintained, and is it?
What is your opinion, Stephen, on what is maintenance of screening?
Maintenance would be preservation of that which is existing, or taking methods to implement screening where it didn't exist previously and then maintain that. There's a lot of different options that could be volunteered. A fence, which was discussed, which Ben doesn't seem as amenable to his solution or his idea of his property. There's other things in our ordinance, such as placement of a building on the lot or the placement of a building on an adjacent lot. The use of berms and landscaping, planting of vegetative screens, construction of walls or fences. All of our screening design standards would be that those that are vegetative shall consist of healthy, hardy plant materials that provide effective visual screening year-round. That's what the commenter had touched in on. The vegetative screening has to be a minimum of 6 feet tall, or a fence could be used as an alternative. If it's not existing currently, then it could be a function of enforcement to place. Could be volunteered by the applicant. What could you envision that you would like to plant out here, and what would the timeline be like to facilitate that?
I think the applicant did address that. I mean, you said that you were kind of planning to do that. And the reason why I asked about the setback earlier is because there's setbacks for fencing as well. So if you ever wanted to entertain that in the future, there is usually a setback based on the OHW, just like there is a building.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, again, as long as everyone's, as long as the council's okay with it, I'd, you know, make a motion here to work with our neighbor Nikki on something that works, in maybe in the interim, before we build, but we aren't gonna do something permanent before because I don't wanna go kill a bunch of trees, you know, and then have to redo them basically when we put that building in. I think a lot of the concerns about the lights is also gonna get solved when there's a giant building blocking there. So yeah, I'd make a motion here to let us work with Nikki on working out a neighborly solution here that works for everybody.
So where all the lights and cars are going into, where does her house sit in relation to those cars? Cause I don't see this building blocking anything, or does it? I can't tell by this drawing. So if we look at this drawing that we have up here, where does your house sit, Nikki? Yeah, sure.
So here's the cabin, here's our sauna. I know that.
It's in that venue center. My staff report called that.
So I think, I like where you're going then, in terms of like how to get creative. I'm not, so what I am okay with and what I'm not okay with. I'm not okay with waiting even another year to do anything, like we have. What else? And. It's 2 stories. So, all of these are patios, so the whole thing has 2 little grandma.
Okay.
So, anyway, like maybe a temporary solution where they figure out like a temporary standing system, but at least we walk all the way to our property. And when they do this proposed hotel, there's gonna be tons of construction, and we're trying to enjoy our.
Hey, Steven, I can't hear anything she's saying.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I need to or not.
That's one of the issues when we get called up to the map that they can't hear what you're addressing. So the applicant was just regarding the construction phase, screening during that phase and where the lights are coming in from the parking lot were her main concerns. So, Sean, did you have anything else to add?
That's in the future. That's not what we're talking
Right.
about today.
Yep. That's it. We're just talking about
Talking about
I'm just
the
trying
restaurant.
I'm just trying to solve the 2 problems, you know, with what's going on now. Because
that's something we're not even.
This is an opportunity for us, if we're gonna give you a CUP, to
This has
put
nothing to
things
do
in
with that
place.
building. We're not talking about that. There's a problem immediately and it could last for a year or 2. And I guess the suggestion is a temporary fencing or something along that east line. See where the headlights are coming in and, you know, position a fence in there. And when you go to build that building, that fence will come out. So when it's screened with vegetation, so.
So that's something that you could, if Sean, if you would like to make a motion and put in a condition, that's your prerogative.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, if there's none other, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit application 009-26, seeking a conditional use permit to operate a restaurant with an existing commercial structure with a commercial waterfront zoning district, subject property located at 24621 South Clark Lake Road, Nisswa, Minnesota. Owner applicant Nature Link Resort. And then with that conditional, or with I just lost my train of thought, sorry. With that, with the motion, I would ask that some type of screening be put in place to block between the neighbor, I guess you're on the east side, is that right? And I guess whatever, I don't, what kind of, yeah, sure.
Something to that, just require them to submit a temporary screening plan to the city for review by planning and zoning, along with you could ask for a permanent one too, to go along with their future plans.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would agree that, it could be either something temporary or permanent, but submission to the city that can satisfy the screening requirements in our ordinance. I would also ask that as we make this motion that we affirm that the applicant is comfortable with it as stated,
With what?
the condition of approval
Oh.
that they consent.
Yeah, I think my only question, guys, on that is, so again, yeah, we're more than happy to work with Nikki on a solution here. We don't want to plant vegetation that we're gonna have to tear out. We do have temporary fencing, but with that issue comes, setbacks and whatnot. So we can do that in the interim, but I'm concerned about a short-term fix basically here. I'm happy with that as long as we have a little bit of, so Stephen, would we work with you on basically submitting that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And the one piece about the permanent, we will not be able to submit a permanent solution until we have the final plans for that building. But we're more than happy to do that. We want to be blocking the views from our property into theirs as well. So that's not going to be an issue.
Prior to proceeding with the temporary screening or fence or whatever it is, you work that out with Stephen before you do it, so.
Yep, that sounds great. We can work with Stephen.
Yeah.
Okay, did we get all that or?
So we have a motion to approve with the findings of facts, the 7 conditions that are listed in the staff report, along with a temporary screening plan that needs to be submitted to the city for approval.
That would be condition number 8.
Yes.
With administrative review.
Yeah.
That Stephen is.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those approved? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item under new business, the Verizon Appeal Council Resolution.
Thank you. I'm just navigating to that here in the packet. Right, so we have before the planning commission a resolution that was drafted by city staff and city attorney for city council's review of an appeal to a variance approval and a conditional use permit approval for the communication tower. The public hearing for that had occurred here at the planning commission and board of adjustment on November 4th, 2025. So city council heard an appeal, reviewed that appeal, and motioned for, again, city staff and the city attorney to draft this resolution, which passed the city council at its last meeting. So now it's before you guys. Tom, if you can clarify on the mechanization.
Yeah. Josh and the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment, as you're aware, background wise, at your November meeting, you granted a CUP to allow this tower construction. On the Board of Adjustment side, numerous variances were approved as well, connected with that project. After you motioned for approval for those variances on the Board of Adjustment side and the CUP on the Planning Commission side, a citizen group appealed it. those approvals. That went before the city council, the appeal did per the ordinance, originated at the December meeting and then got continued to the March meeting. At the March meeting, the resolution that you have in your packet was approved by the city council, granting the appeal and basically negating the approvals of the planning commission on the CUP and the Board of Adjustment on the variances. From a mechanical perspective, we're bringing this back before you tonight because planning commission granted the CUP. So based on the appeal being granted, we need a motion to rescind that conditional use permit approval on the planning commission side. With respect to each of the variances, we'll also need separate motions on each of those to rescind the approvals that the Board of Adjustment gave in November on those, so that we can give effect to the or to the city council's grant of those appeals.
And there's 6.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what I recommend is take the easy thing first on the planning commission side. Call for a motion asking for rescindment of the approval granted by the planning commission at its November meeting on the CUP. And then with respect to each of those variances, do the same thing on the Board of Adjustment side. Are there questions about that?
So when I'm looking at the resolution 26-6, we'll do a rescindment for the CUP and then a rescindment for each variance. How should we list that? Because on here, it just says 6, that we don't have a itemized list of how we're supposed to state it. So
I think Stephen can assist you with those as the
Okay.
variances come up. He can announce the separate variances, took a motion on that to rescind and do it right down the list.
okay.
It was made as one motion for the variance approval. Does it need to be separated now then?
Let's still separate it, given the criticism that generated because of that.
You got, go to that packet and find that for the screen here.
We assume that Verizon's gonna come back and reapply with a different request, or?
We don't know. From a staff perspective here, it just made sense to us to bring this back to the planning commission and the Board of Adjustment to effectuate what the city council did in granting this
Okay,
appeal.
so it's
We
a
don't know.
technical thing. It's
Yeah,
Not
that's
to
right.
rediscuss the program.
Correct, Gary. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I am ready for a motion. So we'll have to do the CUP and then there's going to be 6 different ones and Stephen will help us as we go through it.
Let me.
Because you look really ready for it.
Here's the motion to make this easy with respect to the planning commission side of it on the CUP. The motion would be to rescind the approval given by the planning commission at its November meeting of the CUP.
Sounds like something the chair should be putting out there.
Sounds like it was just made in your name.
No.
Second.
All those in favor?
Well, this is just for item number 1, right?
This is just for the conditional use permit.
Correct.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Stephen, if you would, for the next 6 variances.
Sure. So the 6 deviations from the staff report at the November 4th hearing. A variance for 47.02% impervious coverage in the public and recreation zoning district where 15% is the maximum.
I make a motion to rescind that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
The second deviation listed a variance for a 190-foot tall communication tower where 150 feet is the maximum allowed.
I make a motion to rescind that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Third stated a variance for setback of nearest residential zoned property of 70 feet 5 inches where 500 feet is required for the construction of this tower.
I'll make a motion to rescind that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries.
Fourth stated a variance for setback of nearest property line of 33 feet 9 inches where 190 feet is required for the construction of this tower.
And I'll make a motion to rescind that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Fifth, a variance for setback of nearest structure of 9 feet where 190 feet is required for the construction of this tower.
I'll make a motion to rescind that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Sixth and final, a variance for height of security fence at 8 feet where 6 feet is the maximum.
I'll make a motion to rescind that.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the amended agenda is the driveway access for David Curtis.
Hi, I'm David Curtis.
Hi, David.
Yeah.
Stephen?
Thank you. So we have before us an applicant who's approached the city to authorize a driveway access utilizing an unopened right of way. This property is located within the plat Gull Lake Shores. I've included in the packet the entirety of the plat map for your guys' review. I will highlight in on the specific lots that are being petitioned for access to. Camp Lincoln Road being the north-south here, listed on the plat as Glen Grove Road. David is targeting this Wild Rice Landing as it is platted and dedicated within the plat dedications to the public for public use forever, a 40-foot corridor leading back to lots number 318 and 319, where he desires to build upon that Wild Rice Landing a driveway to facilitate access to it for a single-family residence and septic system. Before we do that, access is a critical point to review. And it's undeveloped, and so I've listed here in combination with review by the city attorney, 7 potential conditions that might green light this in a way that allows him to build upon it, to develop that corridor without going through other mechanizations like vacation and things like that. So happy to field questions, but these are just 7 potential conditions that we've come up with through a DRT that we facilitated last week.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
Nope.
No? I am familiar with this because I once owned it. And I think I
Really?
sold it to your folks, one of your folks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my wife's
Yeah,
folks.
okay.
Nice.
So, yeah, I know there was a driveway cut in. I mean, it's sort of a driveway.
Yeah, yep.
But there is, all this is from, what is the plat on this? 1907 or something, 1912?
1919.
Yeah, so it's not quite exact, but it's pretty close based on what the survey was when I had it.
Yes, yep.
So I don't see any issue. We had the conditions listed and it was just gonna be a driveway access is kind of what we were thinking.
Meeting city standards of driving.
Meeting city standards, okay. Yeah,
So if
there's,
I can, just to give some further to that, Stephen and I and others had a what I would call a DRT meeting with Mr. Curtis last week just to discuss this. It involved Tom Blommer as well, concerned about city road specs and how this could be done. So what we came up with, and this is really just informational for the planning commission tonight. It's not anything that's an action item for you to approve necessarily. This will go before the city council as well. But we'll craft basically a license or a permit, because this is across city-owned land dedicated to the public. It'll be revocable in the event that that road is ever actually built out to a road spec by the city. So that driveway became a city street because it's dedicated to the public. For now, we would give him a permit that's revocable so that he can build this driveway and have some information in there that'll protect the city with respect to that. And then also, to the extent that there are other neighbors there who decide they also want to use that driveway, in the event that happens, we'll require a use and maintenance agreement for that driveway between those neighbors.
is there 1 or 2 neighbors that it's not city owned? Because I thought there was on the north side.
Brother-in-law owns the north side.
Yeah. Okay.
So we just felt like it made sense following that DRT meeting. That's why that happened last week. That's why this ended up sort of last minute on your agenda. We wanted you to be apprised of this in case there were any comments from the planning commission about this. Otherwise, we'll bring this to the city council.
Okay. There's no other questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion.
Do we need a motion on this to approve?
Or do we?
It probably doesn't hurt for the planning commission to make a
Right.
motion to approve the
Motion.
concept.
To
of
go
the city
forward to
council.
the council?
Right.
Make a motion. What's the technical information on it?
It's not in the packet,
Oh.
so it's because it was amended. I don't see anything here.
Well, I'll make a motion to recommend to the council approval of the driveway easement and work with the city staff and the city attorney for the details.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Got a conflict of interest then.
Yeah.
Well, I don't own it. Moving on to old business, chapter 20, land use and development.
All right, so I believe we are picking up with the planning commission's review of drafted changes to chapter 20, land use and development with the city of Nisswa. So a little bit of a recap for those in the audience that weren't present at last month's meeting. We had early observation of the drafted changes as recommended by our consultant that we hired, Chris Pence, for differences on a comparative analysis between the city's regulations and that of growing counties. He provided several recommendations, some affirmative, some of them more deferential of could consider of phrasing. So I have synthesized that into a draft here for our review. And you've utilized track changes so we can just proceed through each of them as they come up. One of the proposed changes was regarding our certificate of compliance requirements. Crow Wing County requires a COC, notice of compliance, for all septic systems on the property. Last month, we had discussion around phrasing of when that would be required. So I looked at the county's ordinance and it was explicitly as stated here, and for all property transfers. That was a copy paste from the county, and as a city, we have limited exposure to property transfer information. When a deed gets recorded from father to son, it's not always the case where the city might get a notification of that, like a recorder's office at the county. So it was proposed and recommended that we adopt that into our ordinance. So it is stated as such.
Okay. Any questions? Is this a motion that you're looking for, or just a?
Nope, just
Just a
further
nod.
discussion.
Right.
The eventuality would, let's say all of these changes that we go through are in harmony with your guys' guidance and recommendation, then you would provide a recommendation to city council to schedule the public hearing where public input would be received and comments before you guys at a future meeting.
Okay, and that would be published for everybody to be able to see.
Correct, publication requirements.
Now, the county is in the process of making some new changes that weren't included in our discussion, so.
Yeah, they've gone through another phase of ordinance revision, one of which primarily to MPCA standards for septic systems. So the city will have some work in regards to adopting that within a 1-year time frame of their adoption.
So that may come back to us at some point. Okay.
This, just so I'm clear though, this did not require it if, for instance, same owner, just putting it in an LLC or a trust, that was exempt, correct?
So it's hard to say. I copied the exact language from Crow Wing County's language. It could be recommended that we change it. It could be recommended from this body that we don't adopt that into our ordinance. I think the options are before you guys in their entirety. I don't think that it's explicitly required. It's a could consider.
I think it likely would. I mean, if it's a property transfer and it's changing, it has to go through a title process.
Just so it's clear, so it's
Right.
not vague.
Right.
You know, cause somebody will go, hey, I still own it. It didn't, I just titled it differently.
So what we're saying, like Joe said, it would trigger?
It would be hard for the city administratively to go through. We're not a title company, so going in and figuring out who owns this LLC is a burden that could be adopted by this language.
Tom?
Treated by land services. The property transfer gets put through, they'll decide whether or not they need a certificate of compliance to do that. So this is really just tracking with whatever land services ends up with. Don't have much to say about that.
Right,
Right.
could be a county thing,
Okay,
right?
yes. Thank you.
Okay. City planners report.
Are we recommending adoption of all the other changes as well, or do you want to go to, should I hit next on each of the subsequent changes that were recommended or are?
This is the detail of what we passed on to the council before.
From the
right?
last,
Our
from the
discussion.
last meeting that,
We tabled it from that one to this one for further review.
oh, you wanted to go
Red
through the
line.
whole thing, okay.
I'm happy to, if you want to go and put through.
I think we
individually.
should.
Should?
I mean, just tab down so we can go to each
Sure.
one
Okay.
and, because some people weren't at the last meeting.
Sure. Yep. All right. So the next change in sequence was that to the purpose and intent of individual districts within the Linden Lakeshore Residential District.
Steven, sorry, can you hold your mic a little closer? I'm just
Sure.
having trouble hearing you. Thank you.
Yep. The proposed introduction of this would be as such, existing parcels shall be encouraged to rezone to shoreline residential over time. And for the purpose of zoning amendment shall be treated as extensions of the shoreline residential zoning districts. That I have introduced as a clarifier that Linden Lakeshore Residential District is specific to a couple plats back 120 years ago that were all platted as 50-foot lots. They have special provisions in the ordinance, and future subdivisions of them or new lots created shall meet shoreline residential standards. So to harmonize that into the intent and purpose chapter of that. Do you want me to proceed? Continue discussion on that?
Keep going.
All right. And kind of looking at this, and then my red line is not showing up on this document for whatever reason. Yeah, it just highlights it so you don't see what was stricken through. Let me grab another document here from last month's meeting and see if it opens up better on this computer. It might be a Word license for this computer versus my laptop where it showed it slightly differently last month.
You know, it'd be nice to put in about 108-inch screen so we could read this stuff.
I know.
You know, where maybe we should be projecting it on a 20-foot screen. so.
Maybe it could be a licensure thing. This computer, it's not showing it in the same functionality as on mine, but the PDF version certainly should. Let me go to that.
Well, there's some people in the audience that could hold up words, right?
Yeah.
So I won't be able to do the next function in the PDF, but it does do the job of showing the changes here. So. All right.
Oh,
Commercial waterfront district, language in this one, I did some work to clarify and kind of generalize that district more so than certain language that kind of targeted that family resort has had. strike throughs and introduction of similar water-oriented uses. There was something in this particular chapter that I viewed to be a little contradictory. So I put the uses and associated development shall recognize and address a sensitive relationship with surrounding residential uses and the impact on water quality. As such, strike through all uses shall generally require a conditional use permit for the expansion of the development. The use charter, which is the table of uses allowed in each respective zoning district beneath this, has other pathways for use and development. So I found that this particular sentence kind of contradicted itself and stumbled on that. And I generalized it as such. Moving down to changes within that chart. Business, commercial, retail was introduced in the public district. We had home business introduced in the planned development district. As an interim use permit, home occupations allowed within those residences if someone wants to build birdhouses. Some of this conversation might be redundant for this body, but we did talk about mobile food units. The original rendition last month did not have it as a permitted use in the residential district. It was discussed that we introduced that. So that was one change from last month to this month. Planned unit developments. I added a clarifier for the.
One quick second are you gonna get more on that later?
Yes.
Okay.
Planned unit developments, residential PUDs. I introduced a conditional use pathway as multifamily dwellings are listed above as a function in the highway business district. So I have introduced, that C there indicating with an asterisk that would be pertaining to that multifamily in the highway business district, so that it's not construed that that's a conflict between those uses. One, if it's a blank cell under PUD down here, that's a prohibited use, whereas it's got a use pathway up here. So I viewed that as a consideration that we could add a C here or remove a C here.
But that doesn't mean it's restricted to multifamilies. It could be single.
Single families, homes are a prohibited use in the highway business district under the
So
dwelling
only
category.
multifamily.
Correct.
The only thing I bring up, there's a lot of single families in that district already.
And those are existing uses where there would otherwise be not a pathway for them are defined by statute as a nonconformity. So they can continue through use, repair, rehabilitation, all of those things under statute 462, 357. It wouldn't make them now a violation, is so to say.
Okay.
Under public and recreation, the second from the right, I introduced a conditional use pathway for office, buildings, business, and professional as defined at the end of the ordinance in section 20-700. Look at that as City Hall, our pickle factory being the business over here, the restaurant. Introducing use pathways that call out if the city ever wanted to have the planning commission review a permit for them to be rebuilt, expanded, all of those things, we would have that in our land use charter. So something that I view should have been there all along.
Okay.
It was recommended by the consultant that 30 feet was restrictive for wetland setback. Proposed knocking that down to 15 in harmony with the county. So you see that strike through depicted there in table 20-17. Also stricken through is that statement beneath the table: no structures, vegetation removal, or excavation allowed in wetland setback. Wetland total size must be a minimum of 400 square feet. The intent of striking that is the city does not regulate the Wetland Conservation Act.
Okay.
Section 20-92, found this one slightly odd. It's buildings maximum height allowed and frontage on a public road. I didn't view that those should be in the same table as each other. One's pertaining to structures upon a property and the other's talking about the size of a lot on a frontage, which was addressed in the previous ordinance phase. So striking through of that portion that talks about and a frontage of public road and elimination of that from the table. Section 20-93, we've had some extensive discussions around accessory structure size. Had a gentleman in open forum pertaining to the same. It was discussed last month to alter a proposed sentence in here from, I think it was depicted as up to 160 square feet in size, totaling that amount cumulatively, so long as the placement of a structure meets all setbacks that it should not require a permit. So I've elicited that change from last month to this month to clarify, as discussed, that 2 accessory structures up to 120 square feet, now totaling no more than 250 square feet cumulatively, would be in this exemption. Yes, okay. Number 3, under setbacks and size limitations, this change here reflects the changes that are depicted in table 20-21. We had 2 different rows in this table for the same dimensionality. The only difference being whether or not the principal structure would match the proposed detached accessory structure. So to that, I struck one of them through and added a clarifier beneath the table to kind of clean it up a little bit. I've had a lot of people look at that table and say this is really hard to read. So it would now have 3 rows up to 1,200 square feet, 1,201 to 2,500, and over 2,500. Part of the discussion last month was around the use pathway and dialing back the regulation like slightly to see how that works. 1 notch at a time. Those uses that were prohibited are now processable through a conditional use permit, subject to all of the other ordinance requirements, impervious surface coverage, setbacks, all of those things would still apply and mitigate it. So if someone has a 40-acre parcel, for an example, and wanted to do a structure of 5,000 square feet upon that parcel, they could then come before you guys where you could put guardrails on any adverse impact to neighboring property owners.
I would still move that we strike that and go back to what it was. That would be my opinion. Because that's something the county doesn't have.
What part can you make that a little bigger? Sorry.
Which part?
What are you talking about, Joe?
About 6 years ago, this rule came in effect, that limits everything to the 2,500 square feet. No matter if you have 10 acres, 100 acres, it has a limitation. Every proposal that's came before this commission in the last however many years, to increase one, I don't know of one that's been denied. So there's a rule in place here that got put in place. I know some of the history of why it got put in place, but it's never been followed and never been denied when somebody's came in for the permit. This is a rule that Crow Wing County does not have in their ordinance. This is specific to Nisswa. It was in Cross Lake, but now I believe it is even removed from Cross Lake. If somebody comes in and they have 5 acres or 10 acres and they meet the pervious coverage, the setbacks, all of this stuff, why make them jump through more hoops for another month or 2 to have the 5,000 square foot building just because we have this rule in place? If they're meeting all the other criteria and just say, hey, we just don't want to have that big a building. This day and age, 2,500 square feet for somebody that has a boat, a pontoon, a RV, and they have the land to build it and do it. It used to just be an over-the-counter permit, come in and do it, and that's the way it still is at the county. So I just still view it as very restrictive, and also too, since it's been in place, I don't know, maybe Steven or somebody has record of how many times it's been followed, but even in the last year, everybody that's come through for a variance on this has been granted it. And it just seems like an extra step to go through because there's already all this other criteria in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's some of the background, and I think we touched on it a little bit when we had the gentleman that talked about it. But some of that was not necessarily denying when somebody asks for it. It's so there is some ability to review what is being applied for versus it doesn't have to, we don't have to see it at all. And in the past, we've had neighbors, many neighbors that didn't have the chance to voice their opinion on it. And sometimes when you have these larger accessory structures, it was being placed where it would affect the neighbor more than what it would affect you. So that was the background.
Thank you.
So the point, if I can talk about the gentleman that spoke at open forum, what he was talking about, or a scenario that he was depicting, is a 1,200 square foot structure that exists 15 feet from a property line. The expansion of that structure, if it can't be, the expansion of which being meeting the 30-foot setback for something larger, would have to come before us for a variance, and that is as drafted in this current swing of things. There's a scenario in which we would ask for a permit over the counter without coming before you guys. And there's a scenario in which we would have them come before you guys for a 1,201 to a 2,500 square foot structure. That principal definition would be whether or not the structure is proposed to match that exterior color of the principal structure, without going out and putting one color palette next to another and saying, well, how green is green in this case. Just do the best I can, you know, on administrative capacity to that. In this case, he would still have to come forward for a variance, but he wouldn't have to come forward for a conditional use permit. If it matches the principal structure color. Just to clarify of what that P versus C is. And that's why you see exterior color matching principal structure stricken through in all these tables.
So is it something where you could put in an acreage thing or is it in there already to where if they have so much acreage, the building size wouldn't matter? I mean, I could see it on a smaller lot. I mean, like in Lake Shore, it's 1,200 square feet unless you have a residence as part of it. But I'm just saying
to me, the better zoning control in those cases is analysis of impervious coverage, which is set by you guys in the planning, in the land use and development chapter here. So in various districts, you have 15% or 25%, and within Shoreland, 50% highway business. So that control mechanism is probably the most effective in analysis of how much coverage are we doing. For example, if you have a long, thin parcel and you're proposing this all the way at the end of it away from a public road, the majority of your impervious footprint to get to that structure is going to be your driveway. So you might need to consider shaving the length and having a shorter driveway to facilitate something. But the impervious surface coverage is going to be the leading trigger of review. So
I think we've consistently adhered to impervious coverage on applications all.
Right.
Where we haven't been allowing variances on that I'm aware of. Other than
Not for
maybe
impervious surface
maybe a
coverage.
foot or two, you know, but it's.
here and there, I think we've had one or two variances to impervious coverage in the past year and a half since I've come here.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I mean. It's already covered by the previous coverage.
Okay.
What about just having it in the shoreland district or something like that? You know, because that's a lot of times where it affects sight lines, things like that.
The majority of NISWA, whenever you define shoreland, you're talking within 1,000 feet of an OHW of a lake, or 300 feet of the OHW of a riverine system, 500 for Mississippi, which, for better or worse, we are not part of that corridor. But if you look at the aerial map and how much land, municipal land, is within that for the city of Nisswa, you're talking a significant majority of the developable land. Most of the land that's non-shoreland is already either developed, maybe urban residential, or it could be open space residential and encumbered by wetlands. So again, there's a lot of tape in the regulatory system and for zoning controls that the city of Nisswa has adopted this ordinance, and so I'm, from a planning perspective, trying not to swing the pendulum entirely hard the other direction, but maybe one notch at a time. And this mechanism, to me, would facilitate a change on a smaller magnitude versus straight strike through of language that's been adopted by the city before I came to it.
I get it. It's been adopted. It's just never been followed. And so that's what I'm bringing up. It's great that we have this rule, but it's never been followed. Or every applicant that's come forward to have this amended gets approved. It just requires more tape. And so, you know, I don't know, a law in my mind or a rule is put in place to follow. And so if we haven't been following it, then why do we have it?
I think we have been following this rule and requiring those folks that are coming forward for a 1,200 square foot structure, 1,201 for the conditional use permit pathway. At least in my time here and from records that I've seen predating it. Now, I don't know, you mentioned this adoption of this section 6 years ago. I can't speak for before that or anything, but
Approximately, I don't know, 5, 7.
What are you looking for, Stephen?
recommendation from you guys to city council.
Yeah.
I'm still a newbie, so I defer to you.
What's the, so we're recommending it to the city council. And Joe, you disagree. So if it goes to the city council and the city council makes a decision to change it, does it get kicked back to us?
The ordinance
Do it
revision.
again, or
Maybe.
how does it work?
Not normally.
The city of Nisswa has established a planning agency and you guys.
Okay.
And so for certain things, you guys hold final authority. Writing chapter 20, you guys should be in harmony with what city council is wanting in all things so that it's not creating a back and forth scenario. My encouragement would be to work in harmony with each other, one notch at a time, which I think that this change depicts. And try it out for, I don't know, a year. Reevaluate it. Land use and development is, in my opinion, as a planner, a living document. Sometimes you need to ride with the times. You might have uses that are introduced, like data centers is something that's been a hot topic in the neighboring communities, where other P&Z administrators are kind of navigating that and thinking, okay, gee, if we're going to regulate this, how? And constantly as a planner, we're always trying to pivot with the times and with the developmental pressure that we receive. If we adopt super restrictive language, and then 2 years later reverse it and then readopt it again, we're creating whiplash in the community on developmental expectations. So that's my caution, is to try to do this one step at a time. And
this is
see it out.
Chris Pence, our person that we brought into, he wanted to keep it. Is that correct?
I think for this,
Crow County does not have this as part of their ordinance.
I'm aware, but the person that the city of Nisswa
That was Chris.
tasked to look at the ordinance did not recommend to change anything past this. Unless I'm missing something.
I can quote right from that section here. So he said, the city has decided to regulate the size of accessory structures and performance standards such as additional setbacks, vegetative screening, stormwater management, and color matching the principal dwelling. There are also options for land use permits and conditional use permits depending on the scope of the project. The county does not regulate accessory structures in this manner. I don't recommend any changes to the city ordinance in this area.
Okay. So, any comments from anybody?
should be noted too, that the city operates in a much more urban fashion than county land typically does.
I see both sides, so it's just one of those, if we're moving it a notch, like you said, then maybe we do that, we try it for a while and I'm a big proponent of big buildings, so I mean, if you can't build so I understand where Joe was coming from, but I also understand that it gives us an opportunity to review and make common sense decisions based upon what we see.
And that lets the neighbors have a guardrail too.
Yeah.
And I think it should also be noted too, that this particular table functions much like a land use charter for the district designations above it. Here we're establishing pathways, P indicating a permit use, over the counter administrative through my department. A C indicating that that would be a conditional use permit that would become a property right to run with the property. Blank cells are those that are prohibited. So if you think about all the changes here, we're striking through this entire row. We're adopting pathways forward where the city's gonna then have difficulty in denying. I look at variances as a burden of the applicant to demonstrate what their practical difficulty is. Under that Minnesota statute 462, 357, CUPs and IUPs, those mechanisms which come before the planning commission, the burden is then shifted for the city to evaluate it and find out whether it meets the standards, if the shoe fits the ordinance requirements. And so in this, and in doing this, the ordinance should have standards that would protect it. Pervious surface coverage being one of them, setbacks being another. Where then it's not impossible for you guys to establish a finding that denies it if they're impervious, if you can't approve a variance, for example, because the impervious is proposed at 98%. Then the application would die at the variance phase and not be able to proceed to the CUP. So I look at this change as not a small notch, because we're introducing a conditional use permit pathway in those districts, shoreland residential, Linden residential, urban residential, and the planned development district, where it currently in our ordinance and regulation would be prohibited. So it green lights the pathway. It just has to go through you guys.
Okay. What does this do for your job? Approval or disapproval of this, making this change or not? Does it make your life easier, simpler, so that when an applicant comes in, I mean, you've got a pathway that's clear to them? And then you don't have to come back to us for changes?
I think it would make my job easier, property owners' desires more attainable, and it would put additional burden on you guys for reviewing things that would otherwise be impossible currently in this land use charter of this table.
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. Well, I'm all in favor, and I've talked with Steve about this before too. I'm an advocate of making the permitting process as simple as possible and as clear as possible for the applicant when they come in. And if they're dealing with Stephen and he can open up the code and he's got all of the code and the language right in front of him, and he doesn't have to come to us, well, instead of maybes, then they come back and we spend a half hour talking about something, and then we, like Joe said, we'll approve it in most cases, on the one case, but why go through that, so.
In a big stroke summary change of this table, we think about those properties that are open space residential. Most of those are already those like large 40-acre chunks. Here we're proposing a change that would indicate that they still have a 30-foot setback requirement from adjacent properties, because those might be quarter-acre parcels with a house right near the property line, for example. That 30-foot setback would provide that adjacent use. If they are proposing that detached accessory structure color matches the principal residence on the property, they're administrative over the counter, regardless of the size, with the same red tape of impervious surface coverage on those lots that are zoned OSR. And they don't come before you guys. If they are proposing a blaze orange steel-sided structure, that their principal residence is brown, for example, if it does not match the exterior color of the principal residence, then they're before you guys. So that is how I would ask administratively to the applicant, are you proposing a brown similar to your house? Yes or no? And then I would determine the use pathway from there. Where those uses are prohibited, rather than opening up that permit door for those other, for the city, probably smaller lots down Linden Residential or Shoreland Residential, the shoe still has to fit on those CUP reviews. However, where it was prohibited on those lots that might be 20 acres currently zoned with that as such, without going through a zoning approval to OSR and entertaining a spot zoning application or something like that, we've now established a pathway for them to come before you guys, get their approval, and then green light that land use permit subsequent to approval. If the shoe fits, meeting the standards, impervious surface coverage, setbacks, all the things. So from both perspectives, those folks that wanted this language in the first place, and those people that might say that this should all go away, it probably doesn't satisfy either party 100%, but it's the smallest notch that we could take. Or you could nominate that we really don't want to see in Linden Residential. What that change would do is I would just, for public hearing, make that a blank cell again. So I just tried to synthesize the guidance and feedback that I've received from community members, council in this body.
Yeah. So you're looking for a motion, is that correct?
Do you want to,
Well, he's not quite done yet. You
Oh,
want to keep
okay.
going?
once we get to the end, I mean, we
Sorry.
can dive back in if you guys want to. Otherwise, collectively, the goal would be to hammer out changes as we go through each one of these that would make its way towards a recommendation to bring it to city council to set a public hearing. Okay. Impervious surface coverage limits. This is that table that I was talking about with regards to how much impervious coverage we allow and the land within each of these districts. The consultant recommendation was to eliminate the coverage maximum for natural environment lakes. So that's where you see stricken through that 50%. With the asterisk, I also struck that note. I found the Public and Recreation District to have an opportunity within it to clarify when we would be holding ourselves just to a 15% maximum. If you think of all of the property that the city owns that holds that zoning designation and where it's located, that might have nuances based on the surrounding properties to consider. So I've introduced a recommendation to establish a range for that, subject to the determination by the city planner, myself, or the department head, that analyzes the properties that are surrounding that subject property, and that impervious maximum shall mirror the surrounding zoning designations. Within shoreland, as with all of the others, that shall not exceed 25%. That's Minnesota shoreland rule, so I added a clarifier for that.
Sorry, every time you scroll, Stephen, it goes small.
Yeah, the table up here cut off to the edge, so I had to zoom out and pan. Is that good? Okay. This property, for example, if we had to calculate the impervious footprint of City Hall or the pickle next door, are we observing 15% as developed? Is the question leading to this.
So now you're giving it a range between 15 to 90?
Yep, because it would then mirror the land that we own that's surrounded by open space residential, for example. In that case, 15% would be the maximum that we would allow in that case. If we are talking central business, like these parcels here, surrounded by central business properties, that's where we would then entertain an option of 90%. So that we're not handcuffed to not following our own ordinance.
I think that actually makes it messier then. So you're saying right now, right now downtown's 90%. But what you're saying. that
Property
gives-
zone central business.
Right, but what you're saying now is this gives the ability to tell somebody in downtown they no longer have 90%?
Not at all.
Not all, so then can you clarify again?
So those properties that hold the zoning designation public and recreational would be currently limited to city-owned properties,
Okay.
DNR-owned property. Those that are downtown businesses, they have their zoning designation in central business, which is unchanged at 90.
Was this Chris's recommendation?
Nope. Just something that I've self-identified as an opportunity for the community so that we are not held to just a 15% maximum for if the pickle wanted a renovation and a brand new building, for example. Currently, the maximum for those properties is 15%, which is, in my perception, problematic for certain plans that the city has coming forward.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm confused unless you guys are understanding it, but the pickle is in the downtown central business district, so that is at 90%. So why would the pickle be at 15?
Because it is currently zoned public and recreation, as is this parcel and all of the parkland.
Isn't that a zoning issue then, instead of a pervious coverage issue? Wouldn't that be corrected underneath our zoning maps and our zoning?
It could be, which would be a larger conversation and subject specific to whatever property you're looking at.
But wouldn't that be the correct way to fix it, though? Because I would think this would be ambiguous, then depending upon who would know what, and do you have a thought on this, Dave?
I just am thinking of some things that Amber has talked about with the park, and some of those are public zoned spaces that have some restrictions on them, on what types of uses can occur, you know. So I think if you kind of travel down the road of changing something from public to commercial business, you better review what those restrictions already are
Sure.
on those parcels.
And for the park, we cannot rezone that.
Right.
That's what I was kind of getting at, because
Oh, even over here, like with the pickle land and stuff, this is irrelevant then because we can't, right?
Correct.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So then that's why that makes it confusing, because it's already irrelevant.
I think this change of 15 to 90%, subject to mirroring the surrounding property zoning designations, would be a step in the right direction to facilitate some of the development that has been discussed in the city. So it'd be my recommendation to adopt that range so that we're not held to 15% on future plans.
Do you have any questions? The commission?
No.
No? Gary? Okay, I'll move on then.
And I did put up the zoning map just for, a sample portion of the property as it relates to central business. So we're surrounded by urban residential and by central business. So if we equate that to what are the impervious surface coverage maximums in that district, we have urban residential at 25%. And we have central business at 90%, where in all things developmental, it's a case-by-case evaluation based on the lot and surrounding properties. The goal of P&Z is to mitigate any potential impacts to neighboring property owners from whatever proposed use the city's considering. So.
Okay.
can I just say one thing about impervious coverage limits that go kind of to that end, the high end of percentage? That's when you really need to have a comprehensive look at, more of a regional drainage plan.
Mm.
More of a planned development district for drainage, if you're gonna allow that kind of impervious coverage. Otherwise, you're just gonna be drowning all the properties within that. Or the right of ways.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. We have red lines coming through on this page. How's that happening? So I have the Word document up against next to our other one, so I should be able to facilitate hitting the next button over here and then navigating to the section. So the next section altered was section 20-132. Shoreline buffer management standards and vegetative mitigation. I did some formatting here, moving the bullet points over to the left. It was noted through constituent comment that one of the recommendations from the consultant was to identify that the county regulates natural environment water bodies with a 25% or 25-foot buffer requirement from those shorelines on those lots. It could be introduced, and that was something missed in this capture. So thank you for pointing that out, Roger. If the planning commission would like to introduce that, I would view that as the applicable section to introduce that requirement. And what that would do is 25 feet from the OHW, there's a buffer requirement. That doesn't necessarily negate development of a recreational use area or a sand blanket. That would just exist within that 30-foot or 30% of the lot width area on that shoreline. For that particular change, I would look for some type of recommendation from you guys to, or put it in, against, leave it out. Thoughts?
Have we had specific problems with this?
No, I would say not. Natural environment classification lakes, they're very characteristic of wetland fringes between the open water and the development. So a lot of times buffers are already in place. It's a requirement of identifying where the OHW is and protecting 25 feet landward of that OHW. So you still have the wetland fringe, emergent vegetation out into the water body. But the filter buffer would be a requirement 25 feet back from the OHW.
Is this something that you'd like changed?
Can you make
It would be an
bigger?
administrative burden to find the OHW.
No, right.
And I'm not a licensed surveyor with the right equipment to locate an OHW. So it would be a best guess that, could be erroneous on the determination without getting a survey. So that cost could be something that would be imposed for a landowner to get a survey, identify the OHW, and then designate the protection.
So this is something put in by you, not Chris?
No, that was something that was not included in last month's viewing of the proposed changes, caught by a constituent in the community. That was something that the consultant talked about, but wasn't in the red line as a adoption. So conversationally introducing that tonight for whether or not that should move forward on a subsequent version. If you'd like, I could put up the county's verbiage so that you can evaluate. Sure. Chief, find their section number before it loads here. Roger, since you're in the audience, do you happen to have notes on where you identified that? Okay. Still take conversation forward. One thing I could do is I could search while you guys are deliberating on a particular topic. I could further this search on the rest.
Why don't we do that?
So. But otherwise, just the formatting, moving the bullet points. To the next change, we are. It's a formatting one. I added parentheses around a reference. Do you guys want to see that reference that I clarified? You'll see that I put parentheses around section 20-135. It ran on to say 3B. I just put parentheses around that. Imagine it's just a formatting thing. You're okay with me moving past. Page 37. Similar to what you see here, for example. Sorry about the clunkiness of this word stuff here.
So is that on all lakes? That buffer that we were just talking about, was that, or is that for just natural? Or
We do vegetative mitigation, shoreline buffers on properties that have a guest quarters, or if their impervious footprint is exceeding 20%. So something where I go out, do an analysis of the vegetative state of the shoreline and determine whether the buffer shall be 10 feet, 15 feet, or 20 feet, dependent on native ground cover and tree cover. Recent changes post-consultant at the county have adopted standardized buffer requirements based on lake classification. So up to you guys, whether you want to follow suit on that or.
Yeah, the county is doing stuff like that now with commercial property. They're gonna be coming in and they're reviewing all of our conditional use permits and our variances, and then they're wanting us to install these buffer strips. But a lot of times, if it's a commercial property, it's already has a SWIP plan, and a lot of that's been addressed with, which I think is a little more effective with berms and swales rather than weeds, but
Right, sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Only because a lot of times this natural buffer gets trampled, the dock sections get set there, they
Yeah.
get killed back, dead, and it does, yeah, there's a lot of issues with it being effective year round.
Sure. When it's doing the work is during the summer growing months when it should have that protection, and a dock lift or boat lift should not be placed on it in the summer unless it's a vacant property, which the weeds are probably going to grow up around the dang thing anyway. So to that end, I'd like to proceed on to dirt moving if that's okay.
Yep.
So the next sections are for dirt moving allowances, activities in shore impact zone 1. That's the first half of the structural setback from the OHW. I was recommended that currently we lump residential and commercial together. And there would be an opportunity in allowing those commercial properties that might have multiple sequences of 100-foot shorelines where the 100-foot is the minimum width of a lot on a general development lake to allow for 30 cubic yards of dirt moving for each 100 feet of shoreline. So as soon as you crest 200 feet now, an over-the-counter permit could have a 60 cubic yard metric in dirt moving within that region. Thank you. Anything beyond that, applications to move larger quantities shall be processed through you guys as a conditional use permit. And that's going to be what you see at the end of each of these sections. So what I did is added language based on the lot width minimum for general development lakes and the magnitude that would be seen above for those lakes. Here we have recreational development lakes, still the magnitude, but the lot width minimum is 150 feet. So for each 150 feet, yes, you can stack that allowance on the over-the-counter side. Natural environment lakes, same metric of dirt moving, same lot width pertaining to those
That's
lots.
just dirt moving. I mean, it's not bringing in fill, it's just moving that amount of dirt within a space.
So dirt moving, if you excavate a steep slope here and deposit it on the same property over here in the depression, it would count twice. So you'd be,
So that needs to be defined, so everyone has it defined, so if you're allowing 30 yards. And what you're saying then is you actually have 15 yards because you dig it up, you put it in a pile. You take that 15-yard pile, you move it again, now you've moved 30 yards by the way you're counting.
my
And
question
that
would
is
be,
dirt on the property, it doesn't include import or export.
correct. How I would look at that is where you're cutting, where is it getting deposited? Are we in the same zone? Is it getting piled up and extracted from the property? If it's in a different zone, that deposition in shore impact zone 2 would count against for the removal of SIZ 1's allowance and would count against the deposition in SIZ 2. So it's really dependent on where we're talking and what's happening with the dirt. Are we removing it from the site entirely? In which case it's just the pulling it out would require that permit.
So again, like kind of talked last month, all that needs defined because that definition from jurisdiction body to one to the other is very different.
Sure.
I can go here and get a permit and it's 30 yards off the property. It doesn't matter how much you move it on. This one's 30 yards just back on the property. This doesn't matter if you move it from one zone to the other. Some you take a shovel in, put it here, move it back on the tree, it doubles up. So in the planning and zoning world, from experience, everyone has this defined differently and we need it defined also.
So I would look at that at the header of the section. Standards shall apply to all dirt moving activities within shoreline. For the purpose of this ordinance, dirt moving activities include dirt moving, grading, filling, and shall be totaled cumulatively for the purpose of permit requirements. There's an exception as specified in section 20-135, 2. Below, dirt moving, grading, and filling activities shall require shoreline alt permits and shall require a site plan, scope of work, and additional supporting documents, including but not limited to surveys, wetland delineation reports, engineered grading plans with profile review, engineered drainage plans, including erosion and sediment control, so that your silt fences, and stormwater management plans, if required by impervious surface coverage of 15% or greater. So reading this, it is totaled cumulatively within the city of Nisswa. My understanding from experience at Crow Wing County, it is the same application there.
But it's interpreted different than you just interpreted it to us. So that's why I say we need it defined.
This would be the definition. For the purpose of this ordinance, dirt moving, including movement, grading, filling, it's totaled cumulatively on the property for the purpose of the permitting requirement. So cut, deposition, wear, and all of it totaling up to a cumulative factor.
Questions, comments?
I can say in the civil engineering world, we measure, I'm not saying that has to apply or be implemented in Nisswa, but the cut volume is the volume. If you put it over there, it's still the cut volume one time.
Correct.
And if you import material onto the property, that's additional volume. That's the way we look at it in the construction project or construction trades.
My ask to an applicant wouldn't be how many times are you moving this? Is it gonna sit here for a month and then you're gonna do some grading work and then you're gonna move the pile over here because you're finishing that area? I would scope it out on the request for the site plan demonstrating the requirements of subpart 1 here. What is it gonna look like at the end of your project? And how much grading work over here is gonna be at the end of the day, the cut from existing native grade? And where is it gonna be ultimately? Understanding the fact that you might have to move it a couple times, stabilize the soil, repurpose the soil over here. But from existing native contours perspective, what does it look like at the end of the permit when you have grass growing across the entire exposed soil and everything stabilized? The point at which you can remove your erosion control methods, silt fence, soil logs, and all those things. So that would be my application interpreting this language.
Just so I'm crystal clear, just like Dave said, then you take 30 yards of dirt, and you move it from here over to here, and you spread it out. How many yards of dirt did we move?
Are we in SIZ 1?
Sure.
60 on the same property.
Okay, but that's a different understanding than what Dave just explained. And also it's a different interpretation than the county has. So that's why we have to list it out. That right there, that's what I'm saying.
How would you?
That is not what that says.
A lot of people are gonna be surprised by that, I think.
Right.
If you, you know, if you allow so many yards of grading on a property and then you find out, because you kept it on the property, all of a sudden you doubled it.
Right.
That's what you're saying, right?
If you keep it on the subject property, where are you keeping it and which?
You're doubling it.
Where are you leveling it out? You might be cutting from upland and depositing it so that you have more of a steady slope. There's a lot of nuances in planning and zoning that might differ from the civil engineering world where
Yeah,
we have
that's-
steep slope perspectives and protect.
That's why I kind of caveated what I was saying, but because the zoning gets into it and if you have limitations, you know, in a SIZ, you know, that's where it starts to get messy.
Correct. And so what I'm saying is, if that is the exact language the county has, when I go to the county to get a permit, they are interpreting it different than you are, Stephen. And so that's what I'm saying. There is, it's vague or it's open for interpretation. And if you want to interpret it that way, I'm saying it's fine, but then that has to be spelled out, because that by two different governing bodies with the exact same verbiage is interpreted two different ways. And that's where the issue comes in.
Where we're going is replacing cumulative with cut volume.
Yeah,
Only
that's the
counted
difference,
once.
strict difference between, you know, an engineering construction project and a zoning issue, you know.
Yeah, in shoreline rule and zoning controls that we have, each for the purpose of your definition in the civil engineering world of site, you could define each site as, well, that portion of this parcel that is within SIZ 1 and that portion of this parcel which is in SIZ 2. In each, we have different magnitudes of dirt moving allowances. So cutting and removal from SIZ 1 that doesn't find its way back in SIZ 1 of 30 cubic yards, maybe you're repurposing it up slope or in the rear lot zone, meeting all setbacks. It really comes down to what is the site plan depicting? What is it going to look like in a conversation that evolves from there with the applicant?
I get all that, but I think you're missing what I'm trying to say is you're interpreting all that and that's great. That's what you're taking away from there. However, that same language, you know, what Dave and I are saying and different people at the county, that same language is interpreted it differently. I mean, I don't know. I don't have county language if that's the same way, but if you move 30 yards from here over to here and spread it out, you've moved 30 yards, not 60. Because you had 30 yards, and just because you spread it out over here, it doesn't all of a sudden, your cubic yards doesn't go up. And if that's the way that you want to interpret it, I'm saying that's fine. But then we've got to define it to that level of detail in here where there's going to be mass confusion.
I think maybe you said it is if it happens in the SIZ and you move 30 yards in the SIZ from here to here, that's 30 yards. And if it's staying in the SIZ.
No, he was saying.
It really comes down to.
If it's
for
in the
case by case
next
thing.
tier
So,
up, then
Right.
if it stays there, but if it goes from one to the other.
And
it would be 30 from SIZ 1 and deposited of 30, maybe 20 brought in for SIZ 2.
And
for the maximum
each
there.
tier has its own volume of dirt that you can move in each tier. That's already set.
Correct. 30,
So
50, and
that kind of
100.
mitigates from moving one tier to the other because that's already set too. Each tier has its own amount everywhere.
Mhm.
It's just, yeah, all of a sudden, what people are going to be surprised when they go and dig this hole over here, and then you go out and you're like, "Whoa, that's way more than 15 yards," and they're like, "Yeah, it's 30 yards." Oh, well, it could only be 15 yards because you moved it over here, so it's 15 plus 15, you move 30. It's going to be,
Right. What's your opinion? So let's ask, bring this back to the commission. Do you think that should be counted twice?
Yeah. No.
No. Aaron? I would say
I
no,
think it should be counted once.
once.
Thank you for that intent. I really appreciate that feedback.
So do we have to have a sentence installed here where it's more clear?
No, if that's the policy directive from you guys, I think that the language can stand for itself. In a position such as mine, there's a lot of application of interpretation and discretion. So if that's the direction, I think that this is, I don't want to necessarily use the word ambiguous enough, but it would allow for the application of the collective interpretation by you guys of that.
I'm gonna kind of say yes.
I think it
Let's,
should be in writing.
please put a sentence in there because to just define it like this was the opposite of you, and then to say, oh, that still says it that way.
The thing is,
Make it
Stephen, like,
confusing.
yeah, we might have, not that you're leaving, but if we have another person come in and they have a different interpretation
Correct.
later on.
Yep.
So
It's not always gonna be cut volume either, because there's gonna be some cases where you're only gonna import dirt. So then you got
That would
fill.
be 100% of the volume that was imported.
Sorry about that.
And is 30 a pretty, I don't know, I don't even go down there. 30 a pretty standard?
like a tandem is what, 6 yards? Most of them. 3 to 6
Like
yards.
those big trucks that Anderson Brothers
Yeah.
runs around in, they can haul, depending upon the material, they can haul 15 to 17 yards of
No, those are
material.
the big ones.
Yeah.
So a couple truckloads like that.
I'm just saying, is it enough? I mean,
I think those limits are all kind of set by the shoreline
right.
standards and the,
I'm just thinking, when you dig a basement,
then that is not calculated. That is within the scope of the dirt to do the project within a reasonable amount.
Okay.
For digging a foundation.
I'm gonna highlight that section here. I can extrapolate upon it further.
70, it's usually like 30 cubic yards per site.
So I got,
Kind of hit the mark. I'm gonna zoom in for you guys. If it lets me zoom further, about as big as I can get it
That was very quick.
yeah.
on the fly.
Yeah.
on that underline area, that's where I would introduce section 2135, tie in subpart 3, SIZ 1, subpart 4, SIZ 2, and subpart 5, activities in the rear lot zone, RLZ, meeting all setbacks. That would be the 3 zones and the 3 areas in which we've established magnitudes.
That you
So-
can install there. Okay. Yep. Any questions on that?
No.
Good, move on.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the one thing about 30 yards if your minimum lot width is 100 feet, say you had 500-foot wide lot,
Commercial property
commercial property.
on a
and
general development lake for simplicity, 100 feet, lot minimum.
So you get 150 yards, right? Can that all happen in one 100-foot wide location?
That'd be a lot of dirt in one 100-foot swath, but theoretically, yes, as long as all of the other standards of the ordinance are observed, impervious surface coverage. Not that that would be something significant in this case, but stormwater management is one thing that comes to mind. We're creating a mound essentially in this one spot. How are we keeping that soil there through stormwater mechanisms and stabilization, vegetation? Where is it going to go from there? So theoretically, yes.
But like if it's class 5 gravel, that now counts as impervious. Correct?
Class 5 is.
Class 5
Right.
utilized for the purpose of travel,
Yeah.
compaction with
Yeah.
vehicular traffic. Yes, constitutes impervious.
Yeah,
Asking the question.
yeah, no, for sure. And
Love this devil's
to
advocate.
advocate one way or the other, I think the clearer we can spell some of this out, the clearer it makes your job and everyone else's up here on, like Josh said, once or if there's somebody else in, it's not open for interpretation. Only if I go over to Aiken County right now and I pick this person or this person and ask them this exact thing, I'm gonna get 2 different answers. So I always pick this one. I'm just saying that's the way it works out there. It's exactly the way it works. Right?
Speaking on her, why are we making recommendations that go against anything that from the trades and engineering standards? That should be the principle on everything is based. Whatever Dave says is the way that it should be based is the way that it should be done. Here, because otherwise you're gonna run into all.
I appreciate that. At the same time, I appreciate, he has to administer the zoning aspect of this to it. So, I think I think those need to come
Right.
together.
No, and so I think making this real clear, I think it's gonna make your job a lot easier.
I agree. Fair. So we had general development standards, based on the shoreline classification. So there's streams, we have tributary rivers and streams, forested rivers and streams and remote. So harmonizing the lot widths for SIZ 1 in there for 30 cubic yards. I'm gonna kind of accelerate this conversation for the next 2 zones. SIZ 2, there's 50 cubic yards for the lot size minimum in residential. Carrying forward that same analysis for general development, 100-foot lot width, 150 feet, 200 feet for natural environment, all of which being 50 cubic yards of magnitude, and carrying forward that to RLZ, the structural setback and beyond it. Our magnitude is 100 cubic yards for dirt moving. So that's what this synthesizes without verbatim reading each one of these sentences to you guys. Just so save my changes there so I can insert that if we move this forward. Review tab. Next up, I believe we have retaining walls, 2136. We added a clarifier to this section, that natural rock boulder walls shall be exempt from the engineering requirement if such wall exceeds 4 feet in height. I think that was met fairly well from this body last time, without much comment. We on okay? Next section, riprap standards, removal of the vegetative buffer beyond the riprap landward of the riprap requirement, not required by shoreline rule, not in Growing County's ordinance. So strike through depicted for that requirement. One thing that is part of shoreline rule is standards to how high above the OHW, how far landward should riprap be? Do we want to see riprap all the way up to the house at 75 feet? This would clarify that requirement is within 10 feet of the OHW, 3 feet above. And copied a figure from Growing County's ordinance that depicts that. Feel like that was met fairly well last time as well. So if there's no comment, I'll move on to boardwalk standards. Love it when it's right next to it. All right. Introduction, as recommended by Chris, the boardwalk shall not be allowed a roof or canopy. Next section pertaining to section 20-139 private water access ramp standards. It was noted by Chris that there's no reference of conservation design developments in our ordinance, and that would be better termed planned unit development. So those accesses existing within a PUD proposal for this body to review. And a kind of housekeeping item in that regard. For patios, we had a old code call out, section 20.66, which doesn't exist anymore. It is actually section 20-142 that was in the code origins pertaining to our water-oriented accessory structures. So in SIZ1, they, being patios, are the water-oriented accessory structure for the lot. We also had, for the combined footprints of patios, swimming pools, and hot tubs in SIZ2, that should not exceed 400 square feet as a combined footprint. We had some conversation around swimming pools and hot tubs. So the language as reflected here would state swimming pools and hot tubs located above or below ground shall not require a permit, but shall meet setbacks applicable to accessory structures. In SIZ2, where they are prohibited in SIZ1, they are allowed with a shoreline alt permit, subject to the same standard listed above for patios, that the combined footprint does not exceed 400 square feet. When we're getting into the commercial division, they have the intent and purpose clauses from our land use charter above in the ordinance. The changes reflected here are verbatim to the changes depicted in the section before. Clarifying, striking through that family resort, generalizing the language as it relates to these. We had a missing header that I identified under that same Division 3 commercial. We ran on the purpose intent without the header, so I introduced the header.
Okay.
Temporary structures, we've talked about quite a bit. Under section 20-178, you'll see in the land use charter above as well that we introduced a pathway for them in the commercial waterfront district in this proposal. So I added that here so that it wasn't contradicting the change above, listing out each district in which they'd be allowed.
If they're temporary, will they require a stormwater plan?
Is the impervious footprint greater than 25%?
Even though they're
Generally
temporary?
speaking, how I would look at that is based on the magnitude of the property. Do we need to reinvent the wheel? I would say not generally. If it's something small and trivial in a temporary structure, what are you doing to mitigate stormwater as a result of the onset of this use? That's what I would look at, and that's what I would say, okay, how are we treating the stormwater? Is it having gutters? How big is this thing? How big is this temporary structure? How big is the lot? And since they are in the commercial waterfront district processes an interim use permit, that heavy lifting would be subject to you guys and your determination.
The county doesn't, is my understanding.
Right, and so I guess I'd like something in there, it's a temporary structure. And so if we would require a short or a stormwater, that's a permanent solution to a temporary structure. So if we could get that clarified, I think that'd be nice.
Let's go back up to that section here, 2178. Introduction of for this use, maybe number 8, this shall not require stormwater management. I can put that on this change log here. Is
Feedback
that
on
the
that?
collective recommendation?
Yeah, I guess, do any of you have an opinion on that? But that'd be.
Yeah, I don't know why you would. I don't know. What could you put up? Can you put up a temporary water management system like a barrel or?
No, I don't think so.
So.
Well, if that's flavorful enough of language, I'm just trying to put quick and dirty interpretation of your guys' guidance in here, so.
Thoughts on that one? Good.
Yep. Adding commercial waterfront to accessory structures. We had that statement in the intent and purpose section that said that as such, all uses shall require a conditional use permit. Well, our use charter differed with that, giving a permitting pathway for that. So I introduced CW in here and put it with one that had the trigger of how big would we then require a commercial or a conditional use permit and how big would be over the counter through the administrative capacities. So for that, I put it with same as highway business district. A structure less than 200 square feet shall be allowed by a simple issuance of a land use permit. Greater than coming before you guys for potential mitigation and conditioning. Next, were the landscaping and parking lots. We had 2 variances in the last year that kind of surrounded this section here, where the city has a 5% requirement within the surface area of the parking lot. Some of the conditioning was protection to the surrounding area of those parking lots. So we added this clarifier in here that could allow administrative allowance of credit of up to 100%. The area proposed to a maximum width away from that parking lot of 10 feet. It's kind of a nominal dimensionality that we utilized in those variances, and so that's where I then introduced it here. Then in that area, the applicant would then need to demonstrate the screening and landscaping in that proposal. Good. Mobile food units is next. So we had a lot of discussion last month around this topic, and what the regulation could look like if the city chose to adopt regulations that would structure it. Some of the chief concerns that staff felt the community had was separation from restaurants. So you see that harmonized here, that we're nominating a dimensional separation from existing restaurant uses of 150 feet from that primary entrance, to be measured as, a horizontal distance as the crow flies there. We've nominated some duration and frequency of how long they could operate, same location for 14 consecutive days, or same location for 30 calendar days per year, unless otherwise approved by the planning commission through an interim use permit. So those more permanent features, like what the city's entertained for Red Shaved Ice or the trailer at Big Axe, still having that pathway for that IUP through you guys. Site and operational standards. The guidance from this body last month resulted in striking of several of those ones. One that was kind of up in the air that staff felt was around the refuse containers and whether or not that should remain in the final swing through to public hearing or whether we wanted to strike through. I left it in there for this versioning to come back to that and seek guidance from you guys as to where you land.
Around the refuse, around the garbage?
Garbage cans.
Yeah,
Garbage cans.
I think we just, where'd we end up with that? We were just saying that we thought that they would be responsible and they would figure out where to put it.
Since operators shall provide customer refuse containers and remove all.
And we have saying just a garbage container.
Yeah.
And that if, as they pack up, there's garbage littered around it and they leave,
They don't get another.
this would
permit.
be a violation that's subject to enforcement.
Right.
I'd say.
You like that language?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mobile food unit permit is required prior to operation, kind of standard before you build something, and shall be issued on an annual basis. So there's an expiration at the end of the calendar year. So it'll be the responsibility of the owner of the mobile food unit to obtain this permit. So that was, go ahead, Aaron.
Finish what you're saying, sorry, I interrupted you.
So I clarified to that, we had a conversation last month about whether or not for a grad party at a residence, whether or not that landowner should be the responsible party for obtaining the permit to operate in the city. It was felt, I think collectively amongst the group that would be a little onerous for that landowner to have to think about while they're planning that celebration. And so the mobile food unit permit, as stated here, would open it up where it would be the operator's responsibility to get their permit, kind of akin to the peddler, transient merchant, and canvasser permit that we have, where it's their obligation to come in and say, my plan and intent is to go door to door and talk about windows, doors. It would be the same for this mobile food unit where they would come forward and get their permit so that they can operate subject to the standards here and facilitate that commerce in the community with, again, the
Agreed on that.
separation of.
Yep.
restaurant use unless that restaurant has given them written consent.
So in summary, this is allowing a food truck to come in.
Subject to separation distances, correct? Trying to harmonize and protect those existing businesses and folks in the community.
Are we gonna allow so many at one time? At the same time in town? I mean, I just, the last thing you wanna do is hurt these restaurants, you know, that's what so I mean, having a food truck in town?
How would you?
After,
A
sorry,
lottery?
yeah, after our last meeting, did you consult with the Chamber of Commerce?
No, we haven't had a monthly meeting. That was canceled this month, so that was when I was gonna bring it up as an agenda.
Yeah,
item, so.
Yeah, so I think we still want all that weigh in on this before we.
Absolutely. Correct.
I think this whole mobile food truck thing needs a lot more discussion from the outside and,
Yeah.
you know,
There'd be
I
a lot
don't.
of encouragement
there-
to public hearing too.
I would like some direct feedback from the restaurateurs.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I just,
And is it limited to certain events? Is it limited to certain times of the year or?
Right.
yeah,
I mean, I think it's great to have a pathway to have a food truck here, but I think it really has to be, I mean, the last thing we wanna do is fill up and hurt, like I said, the businesses, they get 4 months to make hay and.
100% agree.
yeah, this is something that we need more feedback.
Definitely
This,
needs more feedback.
And it's only introduced in this version because there's been a lot of feedback received at the staff level about it. Why do we prohibit it? And, you know, it's, why do we regulate them the way that we do? So it's an opportunity to define it. That's at the end of such adoption could be, it could even be extracted from this version and.
Well, it's something for them to look at too.
Correct, yeah, yep.
I agree,
Opportunity
it
to
needs
build
to
it.
be defined, but we need,
Vetting,
yeah,
yes.
And what are other communities around us doing? Cause they have to field the same thing, so.
or even a zoning map of this is the spot that it's allowed within the city and that's where they all go.
Definitely more room for more feedback.
Sure.
Again, I think it's good that we talked about it. I
Yes.
think it's good that we're putting in some type, but I think, yeah, we definitely need to wanna get feedback on.
If adopted, this would be what I'd look for on a permit application. Statement showing where, proof that they have the state licenses that would be required. Written authorization from the property owner if applicable. Site layout, certificate of liability insurance, that was brought up by one of the commission members last month. If operating on city-owned property was a clarifier that they added. Payment of an application fee as approved by the city council that allows discretion annually in the organizational meeting to establish a fee that's fair and reasonable. Clarifier that these mobile food units that could be participating solely in a city-approved community event may be exempt from requiring that individual permit as determined by the city council as they navigate approval of each of those events. And in all cases, these mobile food units shall comply with applicable local, state, and federal regs. Enforcement clause that talks about the failure to comply with these provisions shall be subject to suspension or revocation of the permits, fines, or other remedies authorized in this Article 8, Division 1 of this ordinance. Housekeeping, eliminating that section there. Why is it saying 42 to 42? I think it's supposed to say 44 because we used the 424. Yes, strike out the 2. Getting hungry, guys. Gotta be, yep.
Have to move the meetings back to 6.
Be 9 o'clock then, Gary.
Yeah. At least you will have eaten.
Yeah, I see. We talked about title commitment versus title opinion last month. How they vary and what protections they offer. This revision talks about getting a survey here. because there's a strike through. So concurrent document requirements for subdivisions and PUDs, plats. It was recommended to consider changing that phrasing to a commitment where the title company standing behind their determination as opposed to an opinion that doesn't protect the city or the subdivider or future property owners. So propose to adopt a requirement of a commitment in that case.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Same thing here.
Yep.
Next was fencing. We had language that to me seemed opposite of interpretation of what it might have been intended, 529 for fencing. We had language that analyze when two houses are in line, maybe 200 feet away from the shore where the setback is 75 feet. How it was written, the fences should come no closer than the front of those houses, an imaginary line between the face of them. I propose striking that through because it's my belief that the intent was to allow fences to come closer in cases where those houses are closer. What feedback do you guys have on that? Sorry, I'm gonna zoom in. I see someone squinting.
Yeah, we're gonna all have these lines on our forehead. Or comp.
This is another.
What it says here is house, and I'm gonna leave it zoomed in for you to see. So
Fences must meet.
So our fence height maximum or maximum is 6 feet. If a fence using this allowance of closer than the setback was proposed, that portion from the building setback to the point that intersects that string theory between those existing houses, that fence should only be 4 feet in height, not 6 feet in height. Just a nominal dimensionality that basically says we don't want 6-foot fences all the way up to the shore protecting people's sight lines. Want to be able to peer over it slightly.
That's good.
Thanks.
That's all good.
Then we have 2 items left, lapse of permits and extensions. This is pertaining to conditional use permits. It was proposed by the consultant to expand our requirements to act in reliance within 24 months of permitting, where currently it's 12 months. The statement says that should void the permit. So Chris's recommendation is to double that time frame that they can onset that use and apply for something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, good one.
We really like that
Yeah,
one.
we really like that one.
Yeah.
Similarly with variances, the administrative burden on both of these, the CUP and a variance, become property rights to get recorded against the property. So technically speaking, a revocation hearing should be the action that voids these things. It was perceived that 1 year to complete the work and act in reliance within 6 months was aggressive, given the market and things of the time. So this change would allow someone to act in reliance and complete the work within 5 years after approval from you. Instead of 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
We're to the last 3 under definitions pertaining to mobile food units. We have community event introduced because it was subject of the discussions of mobile food units. What is a community event? It's that which is approved by city council. We could put city council approved in here. But I feel like that, because it's stated as such in that mobile food unit standard section, that's the body that approves them, that it covers that box. So Next defined item as it relates to that is what is a mobile food unit? Parentheses, food trucks, that's what we all commonly call it. It's a self-contained motorized or towable vehicle designed to be readily movable and used for the preparation and or sale of food directly to the public.
I think this gets talked about with the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be defined a little bit.
So these, if we move to adopt those, we should have these definitions at the end of our work.
Yep.
Right. What is a primary restaurant use? That was the final definition. Permanent structure or establishment licensed for on-site food prep and service within an enclosed structure.
Yep.
Clicking next here brings me back to the beginning of compliance inspections. So that concludes all of the change log review. Do we feel like we are at the point of it where most things are polished up, but we could move it to city council to schedule public hearing for further diving, community engagement, public comment on all of these things, such as robust review by the chamber and community businesses as it pertains to food trucks, acknowledging that we could certainly extract that from this and take all of the other good work we've done on these other elements and move those forward for approval absent food trucks if we still haven't landed that yet.
Yeah, because we can still address that at a public hearing.
Yep, public hearing would be the next step unless you guys want to take another month to come back and do this
Food truck.
again.
So the last time you went to it and it got canceled, I just want to give you enough time so you're able to touch base with them. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree. I would take. the
Once I
time.
get a recommendation from you guys, that's when I'm gonna be starting to engage, create those notices, publication in the paper. With food trucks in mind, obviously that would require a lot of engagement that might even come for discussion for city council, for those 5 elected officials to opine on it before they schedule the public hearing. But if we have generally this is kind of meeting the boxes regulatorily that we want to see from you guys. I think that's the next step, is to get it to city council, have them evaluate and opine on whether public hearing should occur at May's hearing with you guys, and move to adopt at May's city council meeting.
Public hearing would be a planning commission public hearing or council?
Planning commission as the planning agency.
What do you guys think? You want to wait another month or you want to go forward another month?
That's my
What
opinion.
do you think?
I would say wait another month.
Okay.
What are we gonna find out in another month?
Well, we're just trying to
Food truck
compete.
stuff, food truck.
Food truck,
question?
yeah. That's the last thing. It's the
Okay,
food truck.
yeah, yeah, if that's still a stumbling
Another-
block, there's no sense in,
Another alternative that I
Now,
might
coming
recommend is
back.
once you get to a public hearing stage, it doesn't necessarily need to happen in a single meeting. We don't have an application before us where we're on a 60-day clock. So all the recommendation to move to public hearing would allow for noticing in the paper, more robust engagement of community members. And it could come back to you guys, public hearing next month. You could table it next month, June, because of the feedback that we get and
Yeah.
polish up certain things. So
We have a public comment.
well, we're in no hurry, I guess.
Yeah.
I just feel like the blindsiding, if we go right to a public hearing, I feel like the businesses don't have a chance to have their voices, or that we're pushing this through, and I don't want to be perceived as.
I would think that public hearing allows for more comment than new business.
Public comment is for
Yeah.
it, to get community involvement and dialogue at that.
Are
level.
we not, do we not vote that night or no?
You could vote to table it for another month. You
Yeah,
could
if we're
vote to
not comfortable, you
approve
could
it.
table it. That's true.
Or you could vote to pass it on to the council and let them make the changes.
Yeah. What do you,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roger Landers, 26587 and the Lake Road. Yeah, I'm an interested citizen that would like to provide input into the ordinance revision. And so in regards to public input, Mr. Chairman, Stephen, if there are written comments from the public, on specific sections of the ordinance. There are probably going to be deadlines on getting those public comments in, correct? Okay, so, you know, we need, we need to know the deadlines on when public comments are going to be needed, because, for example, I was highly involved, as well as Paula West, in the cell tower variance appeal. And I've noticed that there are no revisions in the cell tower ordinance. I don't know if you plan on doing that, or you don't see any, but there's an ordinance that we would like to provide, have an opportunity to provide some input into the cell tower ordinance. So, you know, that's one, and there could be some others. And as I think you've done a fine job on what you've covered so far here, and I have a few suggestions on those. So again, those would be written comments that I would be submitting as well as others. So I would need to know those deadlines.
For the deadline of public comment submission, similar to variances and CUPs, I compile them as I did for tonight. There were a few of them on the restaurant use in the commercial waterfront district. So to respect staff time leading up to a public hearing, like today's start time of 5 p.m., I compiled all of them at 4 p.m. and uploaded them to the website. So it's not to negate that you can submit your written comment if you show up to the meeting and didn't send it in an email, for example. But if you want it part of the packet that can
Sure.
be clicked on and actually accessible from home while the meeting's occurring, I find it reasonable to say an hour before the meeting start so that I can actually facilitate that upload and get it in.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
then we
Fair
can
enough.
get into the robust conversation about each specific comment at the commissioner level or the city council level.
And as I understand it, there'd be public hearings both at the commission level as well as at the
So the public
the
hearing
city council?
for the planning, the land use and development chapter occurs strictly at the planning commission level.
Okay.
They provide a recommendation from the public hearing to the city council for approval or adoption, or, yeah, I would say that the movement from the planning commission to city council is that of a motion to approve and adopt. For example, a motion to deny, if it came from a applicant or a constituent in the community, would be required if they've applied for a land use ordinance revision. Then we need to put that through in that 60-day time frame under Minnesota statute. But when it's staff level started, we kind of polish over the dialogue and all of the input at the planning agency level. And then we open it up to public comment once it's more polished so that we don't get a ton of back and forth. We might still get some of that, but that's where that community engagement and input comes in.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So what do we think? Do we want to wait, or do we want to send it forward and then open it up for people to comment?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was yes to two things.
do we need a motion to table again, or table tonight till next month?
If you
'Cause we're
are,
gonna continue the discussion next month, right?
I think if you're, you go.
if you're gonna make a motion to table, could you tell me what next steps for me would be?
Make the changes, the red line changes to what we discussed tonight.
Those are
'Cause
done.
there were a few changes.
This is just the food
That's done.
truck,
This
so
is
we
just
just,
Oh, I was thinking overall. So.
yeah.
Yeah, I did those on the fly and I got a
Well, the
little
food
bit more.
truck, yeah, I think you're gonna have to sit down with the business community and get their input. That's probably more pertinent than anything.
So is it okay for us, like one of us, if we knew one of them, to go talk to them? Is it okay for us?
Absolutely. Now deliberation and decision making amongst yourselves is probably where I would draw the line in the sand. Don't
Right.
cross open meeting law stuff, but
Us deliberating? No.
outside of an open capacity. open meeting-
Individually, like if you would go,
You can go talk to somebody.
otherwise it's an,
Talk to Mike Foy.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Say that you could nominate, these are the protections that we put in place into the nominal language, that separation distance of 150 feet. Last month, we talked about that specifically, like, is that the right number? Should we be looking at 200 feet? Is 100 feet the right number? Well, ordinance revision in the future could change that if it's a misstep at this
And
point.
the
but we
big
want
thing
it to-
is to me, is if they want them at all. And I respect that more than my, want for lobster rolls, but it's,
You're still on the lobster rolls.
sure.
Haven't seen any yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, Steve, is there other considerations for, like, we're coming into summer season here where the building season is coming. So it'd be nice to have this ready to go.
You could, for example, like I've mentioned a couple times in these proceedings that this is just nominal language around a difficult topic for the community. You could extract this in your recommendation to schedule public hearing. You could motion me to bring it to city council absent the 3 definitions and all of the language as it pertains to food trucks, mobile food units. That would onset the public hearing, where in said public hearing, we could throw it back in if we get a lot of positive feedback from the community, for example.
I think
You
that's
could
a
leave
good
it in there
idea.
now and strike it later. There's a lot of options in your guys' court here for how to do it.
Push this stuff out too far, you're well into the season.
Right.
You're gonna,
So, yeah, so let's
that's
do
not
that.
gonna work with people, so.
I think that's a good suggestion, Stephen. Let's go that route.
Okay, extract,
Extracted,
gotcha, I can do that.
So where are we
Thank
at?
you.
Extracting.
extracted.
Yep, yeah, we can polish that conversation further a little bit more, but move all of the other changes that we've discussed this evening forward for public hearing and input.
Agreed. Maybe by next month it'll be all back in again.
We could even put mobile food truck units or whatever as its own individual ordinance that is
And it
much
would be,
less.
it would be really interesting to hear from them because maybe they would see where it would benefit their businesses by bringing more people into town. I don't know. So
Maybe we would allow them to get another food truck as another entity to put in town somewhere else,
Yeah, that's what I'm,
you know, so. Okay, enough.
So, motion?
A motion would be great.
Yep, I'll entertain a motion.
make a motion
Yeah.
to adjourn.
No,
Oh,
no, not to it,
I
Jerry.
make- I-
Got it.
I make
Move
a
forward and
motion to move-
extract.
I make a motion to
Move
move
forward and
forward and
extract.
extract.
Back the food truck.
yeah.
I'll bring it to city council this month,
Okay,
Sorry.
absent that.
got that? Do I have a second?
Aye.
All right, we're all in favor.
Yeah, we're getting a little tight.
Read the motion, read the motion.
The motion is to move forward with all the changes discussed tonight, with the exception of the food truck and the 3 definitions.
Correct.
How was that?
You did good.
Excellent.
As a recommendation to city council.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
so next month we do it. That's, we haven't adjourned yet.
Now city planners report.
Thank you.
We aren't done.
So aside from exciting ordinance discussions and conversation, we have issued 8 land use permits in the last calendar month. Some demolition of some residential structures in preparation for a yet to be seen permit for a single family residence. Placement of deck addition to a residence, more run of the mill stuff, kind of finalizing some sign permits. I foresee a lot more permits coming in the door. I have 3 pending, so. Yeah, exciting stuff.
Sun's coming out.
Sun's coming out, snow's melting,
Cakes on the.
have open water.
Get some open water.
Okay,
All right. Any other questions, comments?
move to adjourn.
I just have one thing,
One
just a new guy question, but the packets are great. And when we leave here, they're just recycled, I'm assuming, so it's a question, I guess. Is there an opportunity to look at doing it digitally in a format in front of us so that it saves some paper too? And I know that there's costs with that kind of thing too, but
I have been
has that been
evaluating that.
proposed or looked at? Is
I
just
think a
a-
monitor sitting in front of everybody would be a,
If you look
Big
at what
step
other
forward.
municipalities do, for example, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. A tablet in front of each station that maybe gets assigned to you guys where you can take it and review. provide comments would be one thing. They could be a permanent feature here that does not leave this room.
I was thinking even for other meetings that it could be a benefit to have a tablet or a device, even if it's fixed at each of these, even for all the other council meetings and any other type of meetings that are here. I just think it's a potential for some cost savings, so.
If
And
I
I
had
think
that up here,
and
it'd make life
having
a lot
that,
easier, 'cause I
having that
can't read
closer
any
to
of
us
that,
to have access to it too.
you know? It's,
I will say we have researched this in the past, and I will say the majority of folks on the commissions and council have not been interested in it. And then, don't quote me on a year, but I'll say 5 years ago, we looked at pricing them and I think we have some tech savvy people now, but back then we didn't. So, I mean, it's always room to do that, but I do know we try to watch our taxpayer dollars as well.
And one thing that I could seek from you guys is a petition. How many of you guys would like to opt out of requiring me to print your packet where you could bring your own device for Zooming, whether it's your own tablet outside of the city providing one? I will tell you that administratively packet creation, and the fights that I have with our printer sometimes get pretty interesting and arduous. So, if any of you would be open to the idea of not having me prepare a physical packet for your pickup, that would save resources and time.
I can't talk for anybody else, but when I'm reviewing the packets, I do it digitally at home on my computer. And I do use them when I come here, so it is nice to have a resource so I can come back and forth where I mean, if I have my phone, I can try to, but it's difficult. So I don't know.
I'm a bit old fashioned. I really like having the packets.
I do too a little
In
bit.
fact, I pick it up early. I tried to pick it up on Wednesday, but they wouldn't give it to me Wednesday, so.
But I mean, I can see where that's doing. I mean,
How much does it do you have, Maggie, how much does it cost to, and paper and ink that you go through? I mean, it's tough to say, but I mean, some of these packets are huge.
And even Steven.
even Steven.
Even Steven didn't print all the ordinance stuff, like, we
Yep.
don't need that, like, we're just going through it, it's not a hard copy, but paper's cheap at the end of the day.
Ink costs more than the.
Lakeshore just went to tablets for at least the council. I think they're starting there and then maybe it'll come down to planning and zoning, but it'd be a good place to call and find out how they're liking it, cause
I would just propose that we look into it, that's what I'm saying, so.
yeah. I like your proposal.
Good proposal. Okay. Anything else? Nothing? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor?
I.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.
I know